All right, we're live. Welcome to this very special live stream where we're actually going to have a live debate, discussion, I don't know, your discourse, whatever you want to call it, with somebody who was on Instagram and having a bit of a debate on Instagram with me. And obviously, me coming from a vegan side and him coming from I'd said anti-vegan side, but I guess we'll find out just how much of an anti-vegan he is. But his comments were definitely anti-vegan, and we're gonna have a live discussion here. We're gonna get to the bottom of where we agree and disagree, and hopefully come out with something productive for everyone. So before we jump in and I introduce Kailyn, his name is Kailyn. I'm gonna quickly show you how we met and how we got to this point. So let me just pull up the comment section and the area and the kind of place where we met. So it was this video. I don't know if you've seen this video. It's a real 15-second or whatever it is, 30-second, just a bit of a sarcastic video. And this is Kailyn. This is the guy who's going to be coming on in a few seconds or a few minutes. I made this comment here. Animals eat animals in nature. You can source your meat from a nice farm that isn't automated and is free range to each their own, but also stop picking fights for no reason. I responded. I'll just basically summarize my points here because you'll have heard them before, so you'll know where I'm coming from. But animals rape animals in nature. It's not a justification for rape, obviously. And my point here was that animals kill animals in nature, and it's not a justification for killing. So it was kind of drawing that using the same, we can't use the same logic. Basically, they operate instinctively. They don't have morals. You do have morals, and you can make the decision to stop paying for violence and go vegan. Basically, it's very simple. Kailyn was offended about, well, I don't know if offended, but whatever, took issue with comparing meat with rape, which I don't believe I did, but we'll get into that as well. Everything dies. Utilize the plants and nutrients and utilize the nutrients in the plants and animals around you. I don't need any help, and I don't go out and murder animals for fun or personal pleasure. I get nutrients and enjoy my meal. I'm lucky enough to be higher up on the food chain. Excessive farming of animals in poor conditions is terrible. But as I stated, it's easily avoidable, and doesn't want to join vegan boot camp, and no intention to stop eating animals, and plants are also living organisms, so there's zero difference. And then again, just mentioning how I compared eating sustenance to rape, which we'll get into in more detail. I said don't play dumb. I explained a little bit about what I just explained there, that I wasn't comparing, but anyway, I made that point. And talked about how we don't require those nutrients, and if we think it's terrible to abuse animals, then we should stop paying for it. And it's simple, and also how more plants are killed to feed animals than could ever be killed by a vegan. So if you're a plant lives matter activist, you should be vegan. Responded again, mentioning the comparing meat to rape comment again, and he doesn't support rape, obviously. I wouldn't have invited him onto the stream if he did. And what else have we got? The people have been doing this forever, before the industrial agriculture movement. That's why it's unethical now, because of that. Animals die in nature and bleed out in horrible ways. They take days to die. Not every animal is killed and processed in mass quantities. Quick death is better than getting stabbed or hunted by other animals. Stop trying to make it sound horrible and terrible. And plant nutrients, animal nutrients, they're all the same. And he's not a plant lives matter activist, but he doesn't see the difference. And then I invited for a live stream, and that's pretty much where we are. But we're up to date now. I tried to summarize that just to give you a brief overview of how we met. All right. So that's it. That's the brief overview. We're going to get into it now. We're gonna understand where we've maybe missed each other or what we agree and disagree on. And I'm going to introduce now Kailyn. Let's make us a little bit bigger.
Hello,
Welcome
everyone.
to the stream.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Cool. So, oh, and forgot to mention, actually, I just told you all this. Please, during the stream, Kailyn has agreed to come on to discuss this with us, and in a not so necessarily formal, but definitely not in any kind of bad way. Like, okay, we're not going to be abusing each other, and I expect that nobody will abuse him in the comments. And also, please, I shouldn't need to say this, and I probably don't need to say this, but don't be going trying to find Kailyn and trying to dox him and do anything nasty or anything like that, or attack him online or anything like that. It's not why he's here, and it's not what I'm here for. And please don't do any stupid shit like that, and don't send any silly comments or super chats that are going to be abusive. So, with all that taken into consideration, and we can kick off with this conversation. So, I don't know. Do you want to maybe start where we were? I guess the main point, kind of from our comment disagreement, kind of kicking off with that, would be the animals kill animals in nature. And then I made the comment back to you that, well, animals rape animals in nature. And you took issue that you felt like I was comparing eating meat to rape, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we can start there. So is that what you understood by that comment, or have you had more thoughts on it
No,
since then?
Immediately, I know that you're using that as a shock tactic to be like, oh, animals rape animals in nature. Why do you do that? You can't compare what humans do in civilized society to what animals do in nature because we're not in nature anymore. Now, I get that, right? It causes some lights to go off. It makes you think a little bit. But obviously, we're not. We have civilized brains. We have morals. So we're not going around raping people. However, we do still need food and sustenance. We still need to eat. So, in that, over many, many years of figuring out farming and figuring out that scavenging off the ground increases our nutrients in our build, and then eventually hunting animals and then farming them for meat, along with farming plants and grains, which grow naturally and we scavenge beforehand. Both of those hand in hand evolve to what they are today. So humans evolve, humans change over years. There's no doubt about that. We've evolved from nature to what we are today, and it's not wrong to go vegan. It is definitely ethically more sound in some cases, and it is definitely environmentally more sound in some cases. However, there's no one size fits all. And while you can encourage a large group of people to go vegan to fight this, it seems like people who are vegan like to pick fights just as much people who aren't vegan against vegan people and sort of seem like they have some sort of moral high ground. Like we have ethics and stuff, so we need to not partake in any sort of negative thing. Death isn't inherently negative. We feel like death is inherently negative. Death, especially to sustain nutrients, is not inherently negative. Now, when you crowd animals in large pens and stuff, then it becomes a different problem. But to compare rape in nature and animals eating animals in nature is just absurd.
So it's what's I will stick to that argument because I don't understand what's absurd about it, because if yeah, animals kill animals and it's a part of nature, it's part of how animals evolve. They kill each other, they eat each other, they learn and they form habits and they survive. But then rape is also a perfectly natural habit of animals in nature. That's how also they bond and survive, and that's how some of them actually procreate. You know, for example, a duck in nature, ducks literally rape each other to procreate. That's how they procreate. So I mean, to us, obviously, it's morally abhorrent, but to other animals, that's it's a perfectly normal, and actually, without it, some animals would go extinct in nature. So the point was is that if we're going to appeal to nature to justify our actions, such as, you know, animals kill, so we can also kill because it's natural to kill because animals kill. Well, it's perfectly natural for other animals to rape, but we would never use that as a justification for us to rape. So what I'm trying to kind of understand is how can we use it as a justification to kill, but not also as a justification to rape or whatever other animals do. I mean, lions kill their own babies, you know, when they take over a pride, but we don't do that when we join a new family and there's some kids that aren't from us, you know, from another man. We can't use what the lions do to justify what we do. That's the point I was making. It wasn't comparing meat to rape, which I could do, by the way, but I'm not doing in this case, and we can come to that later. I was seeing that if we're going to appeal to nature, then why can we not do it across the board then? Why is it only for killing?
Firstly, justification is not needed to do any action. That's just a human concept. We think we need to justify what we do. It makes us feel better. This is all about feeling better, right? This is just so that we feel better about what we do. In nature, what is considered rape? When an animal can't verbally consent to mate with another animal, when an animal tries to physically get away but is overpowered, or when two things bond and choose to mate, like what do you constitute as rape in the animal kingdom when you don't have consent and conscious beings?
Yeah, I would say physically overpowering. I would say because, you know,
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
so in that, those are just impulses they have. They don't have morally conscious thoughts, right? They can't
No.
decipher that I don't need to rape this person. I can go find someone who wants to have intercourse with me, right? They can't
Mhm.
do that. We as humans can do that. We can decide, oh, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. This person obviously doesn't want me. Let me go find someone who does want me. Some people do it. Some people are deranged. Some people are crazy. They go out and do whatever they
Yeah.
want because they find pleasure in that. Comparing that to eating meat, the best way I could do this is we don't need to eat meat to survive. We don't need to consume flesh from an animal to live and do what we do. However, we did find that eating flesh from an animal gives you a better group of amino acids. It gives you a complete group of amino acids versus having to find this plant or that plant or that plant to get all these amino acids into one group. So one,
Yeah.
we eliminated the processes of having to do all that research. If you don't have to do that, don't do that. It's fine. We evolved past that point. Secondarily, eating meat is what helped us evolve to this point, to where we can decide consciously, theoretically, not 100%. Eating bone marrow from animals that we found on the ground, and meat that we scavenged from animals on the ground, is what caused us to become bigger hominid groups, bigger people, and scavenge more and become where we are, dominant on the food scale. So
Mhm.
to justify eating meat, it helps me. I do MMA, I exercise, I run, I get a fuller nutrient groups from eating meat. I get better energy than I do from when I eat solely plant-based diets. An omnivorous diet is extremely healthy. Our teeth are shown to have evolved to accommodate an omnivorous diet. It's something that's happened over years and evolved to show us that this is something that is beneficial to us in large, or to some people specifically. And now we can take that to where we are in society now, compare it ethically and scientifically to how it benefits us, and have argument of, do you need to eliminate meat or not from your diet
All
versus
right,
industrial agriculture and ethics.
sure. So there's multiple things to. I guess we'll start with the first one that I can remember you going for there. That. All right.
Sorry, I
So
track a lot.
it's all right. It's all right. I
Jump
can
in.
remember most of them. It's all good. So you were talking about how we have a moral code. We have the moral agency. We're able to decide what's right and wrong, which is why we shouldn't rape each other, whereas other animals, not that they should, but they don't know any better. That's the point here. They don't know that they are forcing themselves on another animal. They just act instinctively, whereas we know that this person doesn't want me and I'm going to do it anyway. We know we don't feel good. We don't want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that same logic, that same kind of tact is also applicable with killing. They don't decide, I'm going to kill this other animal because, you know what, I just fancy it, and I can get a full amino acid profile, as you were saying, or I can feel better with myself. They just do it because they have to. They have no other choice. In our case, the same way that we look at whether rape is right or wrong, and we say it's morally wrong because that person doesn't want this, and I'm going to do it anyway. We can also look at killing in the same way, and this, I'm taking the position we should look at killing in the same way. This animal doesn't want to be killed. I don't need to kill them, and then, but I'm doing it anyway. And when it comes to the nutrition side of things, this, you don't need to take my word on this, by the way. I don't expect you to take my word on this, but I would hope you'd look into it. The amino acid, the full amino acid profile, and the idea that only certain foods have the full amino acid profile, that's something that's been debunked about a decade ago. But unfortunately, it's the modern scientists, doctors, whatever, nutritionists, they're still using these old formats to help teach people these things. So they haven't actually accepted it, even though it's been proven about a decade ago. But that's not something I expect you to believe me on here. But I would
No, I believe
like
you
it if
because it
you,
does sound curious that a
yeah.
meat has full profiles or a better profile versus a plant. But it does make sense that some things have different amino acids than other
They
things.
have different quantities. This is the
Yeah.
argument that these people have made, is that, oh, the quality of protein, but that's actually BS. There is definitely different quantities of proteins available, but the quality, as in the profile, it's full profile in most of the plant foods you can get. The only thing that doesn't have a full amino acid profile is gelatin, Jello. That's the only thing that you can eat that doesn't have a full amino acid profile. Everything else has the full amino acid profile, but some of they have lesser in them. That's all. Some have lesser of an amino acid than others, but the idea of this complete or incomplete protein has been largely debunked. So if we can go ahead and decide, well, all right then, I can do my research and I can find out that I can find this out. I can get all the protein that I need and I can get everything I need actually without the killing. Then we're in the same position as, why should we rape? It's kind of like, well, why should we kill? Because morally, they're both hurting someone else, right? Whether it be a human or a non-human, and both are unnecessary because we can take all the nutrients we need. And your MMA, man, there are vegan MMA fighters. There are
Mhm.
plant-based MMA fighters. Some very famous. For example, he's not a full he's not fully vegan actually. This guy, but there are some. But I was just thinking about what's his name? The guy that smashed Conor McGregor
Khabib
in the
Nurmagomedov.
rematch. Sorry.
Oh, and Dustin Poirier.
No, no, no. Oh, the other dude. The dude is he's not one of the best fighters, but he is like he's well known. Oh my god, why can't I remember his name? Anyway,
Mhm.
anyway, there's a few plant-based vegan MMA fighters, and one of them smashed Conor McGregor and on a plant-based diet. Conor was making fun of him. He was saying, "Oh, I'm going to eat steaks while you're eating your grass, and I'm going to smash you to pieces and stuff like that." This guy smashed him.
Mhm.
And one more thing about you mentioned the teeth. That was the last point there. The teeth. about our teeth. We evolved this way. That was it. We evolved this way. Our teeth. Nate Diaz, by the way, someone just put in the comments. Nate Diaz is who I'm talking about. He's like he eats mainly plant based and he runs marathons and shit like that before his fights, which is insane. But yeah, so the teeth and the evolution, right? These are 2 points that are really important. So if it's true that we evolved this way, right, which it could be, the scientists are kind of divided on this. Some scientists say that we evolved this way because of our communication skills, because we adapted to the communication is what forced us to evolve and our brains to get bigger and more advanced. It's because we needed more complex communication. Some scientists say that it's definitely the food. Some scientists say it's both. So it's, but if we just say it is food, right, it is the thing that it was eating animal products that made us evolve. I mean, what are we expecting to evolve again? Why would we look at what the ancestors did to decide what we do now? And, they were also killing each other. They were also raping each other. We keep coming back to this, and I'm sorry for anybody who's getting triggered by this word, but we gotta speak freely, all right? But they were doing that to each other, man. They were like, they killed each other over territory. They lived without clothes, electricity, phones, and so, the things that helped them evolve to who we are now, we're not doing any of those things anymore. Why should we continue eating like them? And finally, the teeth. I mean, if these little things here are built for ripping into flesh, then, I mean, I don't know about that, man. I mean, I think that's, if you look at every other omnivorous animal, they don't have canines that are this big. They're a lot bigger. And their entire, physiology is different. We can digest these things. Obviously, no arguments about that. But whether or not we are designed for it, and if we don't do it, it's going to make us sick. I mean, that's an entirely different argument, and clearly it doesn't make us sick because we have vegan athletes, plant-based athletes. We have some elite people out there who are fully plant-based, and they're dominating sports. So those would be my answers to kind of your points. So, do you have any initial thoughts on any of that?
Sorry, I'm a little chilly here. I'm trying not to have my voice be super shaky, but
sorry, yeah.
Basically, the vegan MMA fighter beat Connor. Connor was talking a bunch of crap, right? How many vegan MMA fighters are at the top? You could look at all the MMA fighters that are at the top. They're eating a well-rounded, probably some are doing plant-based, but still eating meats, but they're generally eating a nice, well-rounded, healthy, non-processed diets. A lot of chicken, a lot of poultry, a lot of fish, other stuff besides just processed red meats and stuff. That overall holistic diet is what leads to them being better performers. Now that vegan MMA athlete, right? He had better technique than Connor. He beat Connor in that fight. Him being vegan has nothing to do with him beating Connor. Secondarily, him being vegan clearly didn't prevent him from beating Connor. So he can have a good physique, he can have good technique, he can still be physically capable off of a plant-based diet. He also has tons of money, he has nutritionists, I'm sure. He can monitor the amount of nutrients and amino acids, he can pay for extra supplements in nutrients and stuff, and he can probably put in the work to get everything he needs from only plants, right? You can do that morally, but like I've said, we've been doing this for years because it works. We know it works. So we can change everyone morally to not eat meat because killing is wrong, baseline, right? And we can have a vegan society, or we can tell people how the meat industry is unethical now, work together to make it not unethical anymore and cause actual positive change instead of just arguing with each other all the time about vegan this or vegan that or not vegan this or not vegan that or omnivorous or this and that. There's ways to work around this instead of pointing the finger at each other all the time.
I think what the complication, first of all, the MMA point, most fighters in MMA, like whether it be UFC or any other league or whatever, any other games, they're not vegan. So it's very difficult to ascertain as like whether or not the elites would be vegan, because it's just a matter of statistics, right? If there aren't many vegan fighters, then we're not going to see many fight. I think you've cut off a little bit. I'll wait till you're back. Are you back? Yeah, you're back now.
Oh, hello, I'm back.
Cool. Yeah, so there aren't many vegan fighters. So of course, we're not going to see that many vegan fighters in the elites, as you were saying, because there aren't many vegan fighters, full stop. It's just a simple statistic. There are more non-vegan fighters, so statistically we can expect that the top, or at least most of the top ones, are going to be not vegan, because the vegan fighters are about what 0.1% of the entire people competing in UFC. So it's not a surprise that they it's a statistical thing, right? So that would be that. What I'd say about that. Regarding the changing society, right? I think what the confusion is coming here is, I think you as well as many other people, actually, they got this impression that veganism and vegans are coming from a place of like, oh, it's just a diet, right? We're just saying like, eat this way because it's better, and eat this way because it makes you morally superior, and eat this way. It's like, yeah. And I think I've been maybe guilty of giving a impression of like moral superiority sometimes, and I think most vegans, they feel they get guilty of that, because at the end of the day, if you talk to a women's rights campaigner, like a feminist activist, and you talk to her about people who are sexist, whether knowingly or unknowingly sexist, and you ask them, do you feel morally superior to those people? They're going to say yes, even if maybe they won't be like, douchey about it. But let's be honest, like, feminists do come off a little bit, douchey at times. They're a little bit up themselves, a little bit, I know better than you, because they do think they know better than you. If you're being sexist, or if they think you're being sexist, then they would be confident in saying, yes, I do know better than you, because I'm not a sexist, I'm not a misogynist, I'm not a misandrist, whatever. I believe in equality. So yeah, unfortunately, sometimes you do get vegans with that same attitude of like, well, I do know better because you are abusing animals and I'm not. And sometimes it comes across it can come across in a little bit of, I don't know, condescending, which pisses a lot of people off. I understand that. But the reason that most people are vegan, it's nothing to do with moral superiority or condescension or just a specific diet or you should eat like me. It's because of what we've seen and what we continue to see. Some of us, even like myself, investigating slaughterhouses, farms, and it's all with good intentions, and it's all because this is horrific. And it's very easy for people to sit and criticize vegans for trying to speak up for this, just the same as way people criticize feminists, people criticize, I don't know, BLM activists, everyone can sit and criticize, but unless you've actually been and seen what they're standing against, it's very difficult to understand why they're pushing you so hard. And in this case, I want to make it clear to you, this has nothing to do with me trying to be more superior to you or anybody doing that. It's to do with trying to stop animals going through literal hell on earth, because that's what it is. It's literal hell on earth.
So
and you
let's
say making it
try to stop making animals go through literal hell on earth.
Okay, so how would you suggest to do that without stopping exploiting and killing them?
Veganism to me is equivalent to a permanent hunger strike. If you go on a hunger strike long enough, people are going to listen to your demands, right? If you don't eat red meat long enough, or you don't eat chicken, or you don't eat any of these animal products long enough, they're going to stop manufacturing them, right? That's not what we're going for. We're telling people that they need to switch their whole diet, that what you're doing is wrong. We're starting off talking about rape. We're trying to guilt trip people. So you're saying it's like not that thing. It's because we're seeing all this stuff, but we're literally opening people. How do 99% of vegans become vegan? You guilt trip them into stop eating meat. That's not productive to stopping the moral atrocities. Killing, in your eyes, may not be justified in any scenario ever. But if someone's trying to murder me and I can save my life, I'm going to murder them back. Right? That's morally justified killing to me.
Of course.
Now, I'm going to take that to a little lower level. Eating meat isn't like life or death. You don't need it to survive, right? It's not necessary. But it's proven. I eat meat. I can eat a handful of meat, or I can eat a handful of lettuce and salads, or like specifically chosen grains. I know from experience, from working out, from doing things physically, I need both. I need well-rounded. I need meat. I need vegetables and nutrients from the earth. I've tried to only eat vegetables. I've tried to look into healthy eating and not having processed sugars and having natural sugars and all that stuff. Yeah. You can find for each specific person, if we really want to talk about it, every specific person should have a different diet for their lifestyle, for what they do to complete specific goals. So everyone's moral justification, everything that they're going to do to justify something to themselves is going to be different. We're not ever going to see a vegan world. If we want to stop industrial animal agriculture and we want to stop suffering, we need to work towards stopping suffering, not making people not eat meat, because that's just not going to work. That's not how it works. That's not how the human brain works. I'm open to it, but when you put down facts mixed with anecdotal evidence, mixed with everything, morals, the clear solution is to find a moral middle ground for everyone to work, because there's always chaos, there's always killing, there's always death, there's always going to be these things. I'm not someone who feels bad about that. I'm not someone who feels bad when someone who's old and close to me, I feel upset like you're not here anymore. But when someone who's old and close to me passes, that's a
Yeah.
part of life. That's the life cycle. We're still
Right.
parts of nature. We're away from nature. We're in a civilized society. We have these decisions to make, but we all are also still in nature. We also have animal impulses. We can take a second to step back and think about them, right? And we should. So we should make eating meat morally okay. We should make it not some sort of hell on earth for animals, but that's not what we're doing. We're just trying to condemn people for what they're doing. And that
How,
doesn't help
yeah.
anyone.
So just yeah. So I only got the last 2 points of the life cycle. I mean, your the point about like someone old close to you. You're sad when they die, of course, but you also kind of you respect the life that they had, don't you? That's I get the point here. You're like, okay, you've had your life. Now you get to go and be at peace before you before you start shitting yourself, basically, because that's the next step, isn't it? You don't want to get to that point. You want to die before you get to that point, before you sit in your own shit. Sorry everybody for that
Yeah.
visual, but I get the point. When we're looking at what's going on with the animals, though, it's not like they're dying in a deathbed with surrounded by their family, and then somebody just switches off the machine.
They're not humans,
They're
they're animals.
but that
They're
but then okay, so we can come to that as well if you want. So I mean, what would be the
they don't
difference
live in
between?
houses. They don't have
Sure,
those
no, of course
connections and they
not,
don't verbalize stuff like that.
of
Okay,
course
there's
not, of course not.
interactions. There's bloody violent interactions. When an animal meets another animal, it
Yeah,
doesn't talk and say, "Oh, are you going to let me eat you?" No, they fight to the death. Okay, we can do that and
yeah.
we should do that, right? Where it counts. But if we're going to talk about morally eating meat is wrong, it's not wrong baseline just to kill someone. If it brings you good nutrients and it's good and you can raise them a good healthy life and have fun with them, then that's fine. That's an interaction, and then they die, and then you eat them, and then the life cycle continues. It's how the
Not
world
for them, it
works.
doesn't though. Not for them, it doesn't continue though. You ended
Yeah,
their
and
life
they don't
cycle.
even know anymore. When I die, I'm not gonna know. And their nutrients,
But
it's
no
not
one's
like they're
gonna. But
being
no one's
wasted. They're not
Sure,
being
but no one's gonna.
tortured.
Sure, but no one's gonna shoot you in the head and slit your throat to eat you because they like how you taste or because they think you're good for nutrition when they could get that nutrition somewhere else. That's the big difference here. And we mentioned obviously we're not going to put the whole thing about the parents or granddad being surrounded by family and saying that's but they're animals though. Okay, I get that. They're not going to quite appreciate that the same way as a human would, but at the same time that doesn't mean shooting them in the head and slitting their throat is something that's all right. And if we're going to say it is all
No,
right
it's
because
not.
they're not, but that's the most humane method though. There's no more humane method than humane. I'm using
In
this
mass
this for this, okay?
quantities, to get them in farms and farm them and control their lives from birth to start in mass quantities, that's not
Yeah.
humane.
So if
Killing
it's
them
less of
instantly
them,
and quickly, a quick death is more humane than having them die out in nature from an animal.
sure,
And
but if oh wait, okay, so we're talking about okay, so it's but then again we're comparing ourselves with our ability to decide, morally right and wrong versus animals and nature, and which don't have that ability, so it's not something we can't really compare. And especially considering we bred them in the first place. These are not wild animals. It's not like we're taking them from nature and we're finishing them off quickly. We're breeding them
exactly, yeah, that's not
ourselves,
okay.
right?
We need to change that, but we're not doing that. We're saying that everyone needs to be on a vegan diet because everyone can get the nutrients they need from
Yeah.
plants only. That's not true. Some people don't feel better off of plant only diets. Some people can eat carnivore diets for a week. It may mess up their bowels until they start it again, but they literally feel better and more energized. Every single person's diet is different. So it's there's no one size fits all. It's all relative. It's called relative morality. Vegans like to take some moral high ground for relative morality when there's no one size fits all, and that's not okay. If you want to tell people that they should do something that's healthier for them, give them science, explain to them, and then let them experiment that with that. And if it doesn't work for them, then say that's fine and work for something else, but make sure you're being morally okay. That's one thing, but that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah, there are some aspects of like morality that could be considered to be subjective. I'll accept that, but there are also some that could be considered to be objective. Like for
Every single
example,
part of morality is subjective. Every
so
single
is it
person
okay?
has a
So
different
fine.
view and opinion.
Okay, so fine. Is somebody marrying an 8-year-old little girl, is that objectively or subjectively moral to you?
A pedophile who's born, who has the chemical imbalance in their brain that it's
Yeah.
okay to fuck a child, or that they want to fuck a child. If they marry an
Right.
8-year-old, to them that's
Yeah.
okay. To them that's relative morality, but to
Okay.
the
But is the
majority, it's not okay,
okay?
right?
But if that was okay in I don't know, in some country somewhere else, and they actually had it in the law that it was okay, would you say that's totally fine because that's their subjective morality, or would you say no, that's objectively wrong to do?
No, that's objectively wrong to do.
Then there's objective morality. Everything isn't
Right. And
subjective.
so in objective morality, We can convince people to become vegan, send them to vegan boot camp, whatever. But what you're saying
No, no,
is
no, not
humans
necessarily.
don't need animal proteins. Humans
If you
don't
let me drill,
need this and that to survive.
hold up.
Obviously, we don't need any of it to survive. Okay.
If you let me just drill down for a second into something, because I was trying to get to this point
Sorry.
here
Yeah.
to it's all right. We're all good. So the point is that we talked about humane killing, humane whatever, humane raising of animals, humane breeding, humane killing, humanely impregnating, humane milking, whatever. The word humane comes up quite a lot when we talk about these things. The word
Yeah, that's
humane means
fake.
with
That's manufactured.
the word humane means with compassion or benevolence, right? So then we're onto a topic now where it's how do we compassionately, benevolently use and kill animals when we don't need to do it and they don't want it to happen, right? We're talking about taking animals, breeding them, impregnating them, milking or taking their eggs or killing them, or all three, depending on which ones produce milk, which ones make eggs. And we're doing this to them. They don't want it to happen. We're enforcing our will on them, and we're saying we can do that with compassion and benevolence when it's not necessary. That's where the objective morality comes in, because objectively it can't be moral if it's unnecessary when we're causing them suffering, we're causing them pain, we're causing them suffering, and then that's when it becomes an objective morality. It's the time when it would become objective in the case of if you are capable and it's unnecessary, then it's objectively wrong. Where you're arguing from is it objectively right at any point? Well, yeah, of course it is. If it's for survival, if it's for, like you said, you would kill someone if they tried to kill you. This is not a religion. I'm not. It's not a vegan religion. I'm not some kind of religious fucking pastor or something like that, dude. If I'm stuck somewhere and I need to kill or I need to hurt someone to save myself or my family, I'm doing it every single time, whether it be a non-human or whether anyone. I will do whatever it takes to save myself, right? This veganism's not a religion. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm a vegan, so I'm not going to kill these animals so I can live. No, I will probably do it. It would be very difficult. It would take me a lot, but I would do it. And I think most vegans probably would too. It's not a religion. But when we're sitting in a city, like I'm in a outside of a city or in a city, most people watching my Instagram are in cities living what could be considered to be privileged lives, as in they have food, they have money to buy food, they have supermarkets, and we're making these kinds of excuses to abuse animals, like, well, I like it tastes good, it's the way it's always been, our ancestors did it. Nutrition, I've not researched it, but nutrition, then we're arguing from a position of the oppressor, the one in control, and we just don't want to change, so we'll just we make these arguments, right? So it's about, you say it's subjective morality. Well, this would be, in this case, I'm arguing that it's objective, that if we can stop, then it's objectively wrong to do it if we don't need to. That's where I'm coming from.
First of
That was a
all, we're
lot. I
not.
feel like I
No,
ranted
no,
this
yeah,
time.
no, yeah, no. It's fine. It's passionate. It's a lot to talk about. There's a lot. There's so many facets to human existence. But first off, the fact that we're packed in large, overcrowded cities is just a problem in itself. That means we have to provide food for all these people in a large, packed, crowded environment, and no one's carrying their own weight to provide food. So it's not like we're in a community where people are taking care of each other. We're farming on small scale and we're hunting out together. Like, I want to take an example back a little bit in history, not too far ago. Native Americans.
Yep.
Native Americans lived in small tribes amongst each other in their little spots. Everyone was very humane. Everyone was in communication. Everyone was very loving and compassionate. There was religion that was tied in with the animals. You don't farm them. You honor them. When you do make a kill, you put what you don't use back into the earth, and you grow more. You grow more from that, right? You use the animal to grow crops, and then you eat the crops, and then it powers people, and you can have meat in that whole holistic diet. All that stuff, it helps people. It creates good communities. It creates a nice humane community. You're honoring the animals. You're honoring people. You're not being controlling or an oppressor. You're just existing in nature with the rest of nature. We don't live like that anymore, obviously. Now we're in
Well,
big cities.
yeah, if it's
Now,
necessary, if ancient tribes needed to do that, which they did because they didn't have nutritional knowledge, they didn't know how to farm and grow plants, they didn't understand what we understand now, and they didn't have a choice. So in that case, I'd agree with you.
but they
There
did
are still tribes.
understand kind of what we know now. They
They
didn't have
didn't.
the science of it, but they knew
Yeah.
vaguely. They can tell in their hearts and what they
Well,
do. They could see
they
what they're
guessed.
doing is benefiting them.
Look,
And
they
then they
guessed, but
came
they
and got
also.
wiped out by colonialists who
Yeah.
brought in this ushering system of cattling animals, impregnating them,
Yeah.
making horses impregnate each other so we could ride the horses, making cows be
Yeah. Yeah.
cows, injecting chickens with hormones, all this stuff. We're not looking to combat that though. We're not looking to make things right and ethical. We're not looking to break down these big old societies that obviously aren't working, that are causing disease, that are causing homelessness and rampant problems. All this holistic stuff. We're not breaking down any of that. We're just telling people that they need to not be eating meat because they're bad people.
Right. So the
And
point.
that's not productive. That's just
So
putting
just
people down and causing argument.
let me just pick up your last points because there's one that we've skipped over, then we'll come to that one as well. So about the kind of, I don't know, in tribal, natives, indigenous, whatever you want to call them, and that they just kind of know what is right for them, and that's kind of like as if it's kind of being positioned as some kind of like the right
They
way. This is
figure it out without science. They figure
yeah,
it
the
out
pure.
without sitting in laboratories and saying
Right,
that
right.
this is
But
that
then,
and that is this.
there have been some studies that have been revealed on some of these ancient tribes have shown that they, like, quite a good amount of them were suffering from heart disease. So, maybe they didn't understand. They didn't know the science, obviously, and they thought they just did what they felt was right. But then they were finding heart disease in some of these tribes. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we've moved to a point now. The point is, whatever they did, right? That was what they felt was right. That was the way they did it. That was the way they thought they had to do it, and no one can argue anything else. But that's not where we are now. It's not the position that we're in now. We know better. We're living in different ways, whether that's for right or for wrong. I mean, if so a lot of people would probably agree with you that, okay, we want to go back to the simpler ways before all of the, complications in big cities. But for whatever, we're here now. We're in big cities where the population's fucking ridiculous. We're in a position now where the technology and the science has, leapt forward, and now we understand what we can and can't eat and where we can get nutrients from, and we know that we can get the full nutrient profile that we need without doing this to animals anymore. So that brings us to the point where it's like, okay, why would we continue to do it? And this way you're telling me that telling people that eating meat is bad, and that's what I'm saying. Instead of talking about what the problems with society as a whole, I mean, at the end of the day, there are like a million problems, right? A million problems, and yes, you can care about all of them at once, and you can try and fight for all of them at once. And I know people who do that, and I respect them. It's great. I really respect them. You go ahead and you get out there and you fight for everything at the same time. I don't know how effective you're going to be, doing that, but fair play to you if that's what you want to do. Like, you're an inspiration for me. I have found my passion. I know where it is, and my passion is helping the most vulnerable, by far the most vulnerable beings, because they don't even have voices that humans listen to. They can't speak any language we can speak, right? You can learn how to understand animals, but ultimately no one really does. Not many people do. They're completely ignored. At least with other oppressed groups of humans, at least they can actually say, hey, fuck off. Don't do this to me. At least we can listen to that. And yeah, they get ignored too, and it's disgusting. But with the non-humans, they literally, they don't just get ignored, they get completely dismissed. Like, their voices aren't even registered as meaningful. They are treated like a fucking table. Like this table that I'm knocking on now. Some people see animals as literally the same, an object. They say
That's
it,
not how it
right?
works.
But this is what a piece of meat becomes, the same as a glass of water, right? This is what it becomes. They don't think about what the living being was before that. That living being that literally screamed and begged not to be killed. And then, so this person can can eat it because they like it? Because they don't need to. This is the point where we're at. They're seen as a resource. And this is why I fight for them.
So are you saying that in any scenario, in any case, harming another animal that is alive, that is not human, for consumption, regardless of how you treat it or how it comes about, that's not okay? That's your baseline?
If it's unnecessary, then yeah, it's always going to be wrong. If it's
Well,
not a
what does
necessity.
unnecessary mean?
It means that you are not in a survival situation, and you are like someone. I'm not going to assume for you, but I'm going to say, like, you're somebody who has money. You have a supermarket. You have resources around you where you can take all of your nutrition without this. Like, we're not talking about people living in I don't know, some Arctic land who live off the land. It's like there's a completely different argument here, and that's a debate I could have with somebody living in one of those places, but it's not a debate that's relevant for us. I'm talking about the majority of people who have access to food, to have access to everything they need, and they choose instead to go and pay for this, for these animals to be, used and killed, bred, used and killed instead.
Tell me how it's not necessary for people to eat animals, and that they're only good if they eat plants and other living organisms that are not animals.
So what the difference you mean? So plants are not sentient. They don't have a
Hmm.
central nervous system. They don't have a brain. They don't have any capacity to feel or experience pain. They're not self-aware.
But the
Most living.
nutritional aspect of it.
Oh, okay. The nutritional aspect of it. Well, they can provide us with all the nutrition that we need, bar B12. The only thing that they can't provide us with is B12, but then that B12 vitamin is it's not present anymore really in any natural food because of how we clean everything. B12 was used to be found in soil. It's no longer found in the food we eat because we clean everything. So the animals are actually given B12 supplements. So that's the only thing that we can't get. We can't even get it from animal products naturally. We can't get it from plant products naturally. So it's recommended you to take a B12 supplement. Aside from that, we can obtain everything we need from non-sentient life forms that don't scream and, have families and pain and experience life the way we do. If we have to kill, we should kill as low down as possible in terms of sentience. And that's why my argument is to kill plants then, not sentient animals.
So every human on Earth, for all intents and purposes, to just be alive, be sustained, and have their cells keep regenerating and be living,
Hmm.
just needs they can get all their essential vitamins from plants, and they can take B12.
Yep.
How do we measure what quantities? How do we tell every single person that this is the diet they need to use? How do you tell someone who tries it and eats it and feels like it's not working for them, and when they eat meat, it feels better to them, that isn't working for them and that they shouldn't do that?
It's a good question, and this happens a lot because we like what we like, and we like foods, comfort foods. So a lot of the times when somebody eats plant-based for a day or 2 days and they say, "Oh, it doesn't feel like it's right for me," it's because your body is craving what it's used to. It's craving those foods that you've been eating all the time. So a lot of the time it might feel like it's physical, but it probably is mental. It's probably a mental thing. But if it is physical, if you feel like it's not, the plant-based diet's not matching up to your physicality, then adjustments have to be made. And how do you do that? Well, you can use you don't seem to be a big fan of this, but you can use Vegan Boot Camp. It is a professional resource for new vegans to find out how to eat properly. But if you don't want to use something like that, you can use something like Chronometer, which you can track maybe a week or two of your intake and see what you're getting and what you're not getting, and see if increasing a certain amount of one of the nutrients is making you feel better. It's the thing is not, no one's actually doing this, right? I mean, you probably are because of MMA, tracking
Just
your
in
nutrients
general,
coming in.
trying to
Like,
be a better person, be healthy, be good
sure,
morally and
yeah,
everything. Yeah.
yeah. Some athletes, most athletes and people training, they track their protein intake, they track the calorie intake, right? But most people don't actually do that in general, and when they switch to a plant-based diet, they make the mistake of thinking, well, whatever, I'll just eat and see what happens. And then they sometimes can make themselves sick because they don't know what they're doing. You need to relearn how to eat when you start eating a plant-based diet. You can't just eat some lentils and salad and be like, well, fuck it, I'll go and do an MMA fight now. It's not going to go well. You
Yeah,
need to
exactly.
understand what you've taken out. They've taken out all the animal products, right? Well, now you've got to replace them, and you need help doing that. And this is where things like Vegan Boot Camp, or another website, challenge22.com, or movies like What the Health, there's a documentary about this. The Game Changers is also a documentary about this. There are lots of resources for people to figure it out. But yeah, you're totally right. People shouldn't do it by themselves. It needs to be relearned. But it's worth it. It's worth it so that we're not contributing to all of that, those horrors anymore. And then you mentioned before, like, it doesn't have to be like that. You did say, like, okay, but we can make it less horrible. I mean, we can talk about the upbringing, or no, we couldn't call it upbringing, the breeding and the raising of these animals. Yes, some of them are in these horrible factory farms. Some of them are in less horrible small farms. I acknowledge that some of them aren't as bad as other ones, like, but it doesn't make them good. They're still breeding animals to then sell them for profit, to use and sell them for profit, and they always end up in the same slaughterhouse. It's not like there are special slaughterhouses for the small farms, or a special knife, or I don't know, a special procedure. They're all either shot in the head, throat slit, or if it's halal, just throat slit, depending on where they go. right? That's the end. That's the most humane way. So we want to do everything we can to avoid that. And if that means learning a new way of eating, if that means figuring it out, like, it takes a couple of weeks to figure it out. Really, it's not that big of a deal. Like 2-3 weeks, and then you're like, right, I get it. Then what? 2 or 3 weeks of time versus shooting and slitting animals' throats. I know which one I'd choose, and that's what I'm trying to convince other people of. Is to It's 2 or 3 weeks of your time. It's literally nothing. You figure it out, and then there you go. You're no longer contributing to this violence. Someone saying in the comments now, I don't know, I eat a bowl of lentils with avocado slices and I'm ready to take on McGregor.
Oh, geez. Um, okay, so there's a lot of good points to be made and had, and I guess now it just comes down to where a person who is alive and has a conscious brain morally stands, because we're not in the nature cycle anymore, and we are in civilized cycle. We can point out how every single thing we do is harmful to nature, to other beings. The technology we're using to communicate on is the result of deforestation and millions of animals of that. Who cares? We can go down those roads all day. All we can go down those roads all day for years, whatever, whenever, at any time. We can talk about anything. Eating your dietary stuff, if it helps you to have an all plant-based diet and you feel bad about the industrial agriculture system and animals, it is good to go vegan. It is good to care about that and to inform other people and to let them know of the horrors of where their food comes from, of how we can change it or how we should be doing things differently. But an animal getting shot in the head or slit in the throat for food, that doesn't bother me. And I get that people are different, and it bothers you and it bothers billions of people, but it doesn't bother me because things die and it's the circle of life. And as civilized and humane as we are, we still have human nature. We still are a part of nature. We still have these cycles. I'm not willing to push myself so far away from that just to not eat meat and change my whole diet just to stop the killing of animals baseline. But I'm completely willing to work around work around a plant-based diet and cutting out meat to stop the suffering of animals, to stop the putting them in large pens, to stop humans force breeding them, all this stuff. But what I would really rather prefer is to humans to look at themselves as a whole. If we really care about animals, to stop trying to make this civilized society crap work and to have smaller communities where we scavenge, where we hunt, where we are intellectual, where we have all the stuff that we create, technology, all these facets. If we're going to condemn one facet, we need to condemn all facets. If we're not going to do that, then there's no point in making people feel bad. But as long as you educate people on where their food comes from and that they know where their stuff comes from, you can't choose what people do morally. You can't tell people what's right and wrong. You're never going to get one size fits all. There's some idea of divine law, what people feel or know in their heart's right, what God created or whatever. And in divine law, you can argue that people eat animals and that's how it goes. Or you can come out of it naturally and talk about plant-based diets and stuff. It all goes hand in hand. One size is not going to fit all, as I said before. And my point, and what I originally said in the comment, you can see, is that we shouldn't condemn people for their diet choices, but we should inform them and work to get to some sort of middle ground that works for everyone, and so people don't feel bad all the time. Because humans aren't the only thing that exists. We're just the only things that can vocalize that we feel bad. We're trying to make ourselves not feel bad. It does not matter to me.
Yeah. So I'll start with the last point you made. One of the points about smaller communities, just off topic for a second. In that, like, I think that's a good idea in theory, but I think the problem with the whole small communities idea is that our populations are too big now for that to work properly. We'd have to lose a lot of people to get back into the small community way. But even if we did have the small communities, then I would still be saying that, okay, let's have small communities that are eating plant-based. Why would we have small communities and keep on farming animals? It would be right now that the only drawback, the biggest challenge that we have, apart from people, not wanting to stop killing animals because they like the taste of them, is that the plant-based food system requires a big systemic change. We need a big change. We need everything to switch to plant-based food system. That will be much easier to implement in small communities. So I'm with you. I wish we did have small communities with small plant-based systems. It would be much easier to implement. But the main point you went for there, that doesn't bother you, or it doesn't bother you, or like you don't care about the It doesn't bother you the animal's shot in the head and have their throat slit, and it does bother me, and that's the kind of the core argument here. Whether it bothers me or not is irrelevant. Whether it bothers these vegans or not is irrelevant, right? The point is that it bothers the animal. It bothers them.
Mhm.
It's their life that's important here, not my opinion, not your opinion, not any vegan's opinion.
And to your
There are
point, if we don't do it, some other animals going to be born in nature. It's going to be mauled to death.
well,
It's the cycle of
they
life.
won't be
It's how
bred.
things work.
They won't be bred. They won't be bred. We bred
So let's
them for
not breed
that.
them.
This is exactly, and to not breed them, we need to stop demanding that farmers breed them. If we stop consuming the products, the farmers stop breeding them, and eventually, anyway. I mean, obviously, it's going to take a bit of time, but as long as we keep contributing, keep paying, and keep giving them the we want that, they'll keep breeding them
So
over and
let's
over again.
tell meat eaters, people who swear by this, me included. I like to eat meat, right? I'm arguing that I don't care if animals die. This is my thing that I can say is honestly kind of selfish and is my self-preservation or whatever. But let's tell meat eaters that this is not humane, that you can still figure this out without doing all that. And it just doesn't have to happen. Instead of telling them, you're an animal murderer, you're just making fun of people who are vegan because it's different. Da 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 da. No, educate them to have civil conversations. Don't make
Absolutely.
memes about like pointing fingers and then pointing fingers back and then causing some big argument. I mean, I guess there's sort of comedy in that. There's sort of like relief. There's sort of having a basis of people who follow you and stuff and all that stuff.
Right.
But it's not productive to helping the animals. It doesn't help the animals just to cause divide. We need to actually
Sure.
work towards helping the animals.
Let me tell you something that might blow your mind. The only reason that you're sat here having this discussion with me is because I made a sarcastic meme video. This is literally part of the tactic that I'm using because I want more of these conversations. I want to meet more people like you who you're right. My videos poke fun at vegans. My videos poke fun at meat eaters. They poke fun at people who drink milk. I don't do it for like just for the sake of it. I do it because I see that it works. I see that it brings people in. I see that I get into good conversations. I meet good people like you who want to come on and talk about these things. And it's a different way to get a message out. Now, what you're saying here about, tell people that there's a way to live. I do that as well, and other vegans do that as well too. But just the same way, like there are many ways to share a message. I mean, if you had a message to share that you felt was very important to you, and you saw other people doing it one way, would you want to do what they're doing, or would you want to try something different to get a different angle, different response, different people connecting with you? Because other people are doing it all the same way or their own way. So I understand, as much as I understand your point that we should be more in. I don't know. You're suggesting we do it in a more show people why it's wrong, show people the way they can change, all this kind of stuff. It is important. It's equally important, but it's also important to actually get these people, get the eyes on the message. And sometimes you got to be cheeky. You got to do a meme. You got to do a sarcastic video. You got to say something that's like, I don't. You said calling people murderers. I don't call people murderers. But I don't really call people.
Abusers.
Yeah, I don't really call people animal abusers that much, unless it's clear as day that this is an animal abuser. Like, for example, if I'm talking about a farmer that's showing off their skills of, I don't know, slitting an animal's throat, then I mean, for me, it's clear cut that I'm gonna say this. Look at this animal abuser. It's disgusting, right? But if I'm talking to somebody like you, I'm not going to sit here and, unless you're literally sat there telling me like, if you were being a troll, like I love killing animals and shit like that, it's all great. It's my favorite thing. I'd just be like, oh, you're an animal abuser, and we'd stop the conversation. It's not something I throw out willy nilly, is what I'm trying to say. Well, look, the point back circled round back to your original point about it not bothering you. There are many vegans that I've met who literally don't give a shit about animals, and this sounds really strange, right? They don't care. They don't like animals. There's a good friend of mine. His name's Hudson. He's quite a well-known activist online. He's got a lot of followings. He's quite young. You see, so he's like started when he was 17. So a lot of people were like really into that, because he was a very strong speaker and stuff. So he's got a good following. He doesn't like animals. He literally has no interest in them. I asked him, like, we talked about this. He doesn't go petting animals. He doesn't hang out with animals. And there's many vegans like that. They're just not interested. But that doesn't mean that they want to see them killed. They don't care about them, but at the same time, they don't want them to suffer. Just for example, like, you probably don't give a shit about some serial killer rotting in prison somewhere, but I'm going to guess you wouldn't pay for that serial killer to be tortured or have his throat slit. You wouldn't be comfortable paying for that, I'm going to guess, right? It's not something that you're going to go out of, and that person probably deserves it. But these animals are getting that done to them, when we pay for it, and they've done nothing to deserve it. They've literally they're just born. They're just innocent. They can't understand what's going on. They don't have a fucking clue what's going on. They have, they're separated from babies, separated from their young if they've had young, and then eventually they just go and have their throats slit. And this is the life that we're paying for them for. Something that we probably wouldn't even pay to happen to a criminal. So this is where we've got to ask the question. Yeah, I don't give a shit about them, but why am I going to pay for this to happen to them? You can be indifferent, I suppose, but it's not an excuse to do it, right? I mean, I don't care about them, but why would I pay for that to happen to them? That's kind of the crux of the point.
Well, I can relate this to me personally. Ideally, I would love to visit my farm, know where my animal comes from if I'm choosing to eat animals. Excuse me. And have the conversations with the farmer. You're treating them right. You're not forcing impregnation. You're not doing all this stuff, right? You're not treating them all crazy. You're not abusing them. You're treating them like a friend or like a pet or something. And then once they're closer to the end of their life cycle, you're killing them, using them for meat, right? That's okay to me because
could I interject and just ask a question? Like, do you not think that's even worse though? I mean,
No.
they trust the farmer. They see him as a father or a family member, and then he betrays their trust by leading them into a room and slitting their throat. Versus a farmer who doesn't give a shit about them from day one, treats them like shit their whole life, and then kills them. At least in that case, the animal doesn't feel loved, and they don't feel like they trust this person. Because farmers do that, They spend all this time with them, get them to trust them, and then they guide them into a slaughterhouse and just say bye to them. They use that trust.
Families in Asia and Thailand have pet chickens that are their pet chicken, and then when they run out of meat or they need nutrients, they can't survive, they kill that chicken and they honor the chicken's meat and they eat it, and it gives them nutrients and it continues the life cycle. And they took care of it, they talked to it, they related to it, and then the time came where what we consider ourselves higher up on the food chain, right? You could talk about humans and morals and stuff, but in nature, we were at some point on the food chain.
Yeah.
It's just continuing the circle of life because we are still part of nature. We're not above animals, and we do have conscious brains and we can talk and communicate. Just because we can do all those things, though, doesn't mean we're above the cycles of life. Doesn't mean that we are above everything else. Doesn't mean that we're the dominant species and that we control everything. In some aspects, I still want to be part of those cycles.
I mean, there is no cycle of life or kind of food chain that we are really a part of in this moment. I mean, that's not a food chain, is it? Breeding, forcing animals to get pregnant, breeding them, farming them, killing them. It's not. We are far removed from any kind of food chain, and this is there's actually a definition for what we're talking about here. It's called an appeal to nature. It's the idea that nature is beautiful, nature is perfect, so we should aspire to be like nature. But it's not really
it's not
logical.
Perfect. It's in constant chaos, and humans are beings of chaos, and we're not perfect, and we're not going to save everyone's feelings all the time.
Sure, but that's kind of like it's almost like we're saying, well, it's futile then. It's chaos, so we should just play into the chaos and keep killing indiscriminately, keep killing when we don't have to, because we should
to make sure that we are doing this in a way that isn't running people into the ground, that isn't running civilization into the ground, that isn't creating excessive amounts of waste, and that isn't causing abuse of animals. We should find a system that works for everyone.
No, that system's a plant-based system. That system can give
That's
everyone.
Subjective.
Okay, well, it's in the case of what you've just said, a system that can get people nutrients, a system that doesn't abuse animals. The only system that doesn't abuse animals is a plant-based system. Any other system abuses them because
abuse is subjective, because killing someone directly is not abuse. There has to be certain moral things, there has to be situational things and social things that lead up to something to constitute it as abuse.
Sometimes killing is justified. We've been through that, and sometimes abuse would be justified if it's necessary. You know what I mean? It's not like,
well, no, calling something abuse or not justifying it, but just calling something abuse in itself is subjective. Mm-hmm. If I beat a baby with a belt, you could consider that not a baby, but if I hit a child, an infant with a belt, you can consider that abuse.
Better, yeah.
But there's actual psychology that goes into that. Yeah. A child at a certain age doesn't respond to anything except for intense verbal or physical cues, and then you can have conscious conversations with them. There's certain things like that in psychology that you can consider abuse or not consider abuse. It's subjective.
because this will benefit the child, right? But this will never benefit an animal. Killing an animal or using them for their bodies, or impregnating them to get them pregnant to take
No,
their
it
milk from
doesn't. It
them, it's
benefits
never good.
us. It
So it would
benefits
be
us.
abusing them.
And
It
so
would be abusing them then.
in a
It's ex-
situation,
it would be abuse, or you could call it exploitation if you really want. But it's if you want, it's semantics. At the end of the day, what we're doing to them is never going to be something. It's never something that's going to benefit them. It's always going to benefit us. If we switch it out for a human, right? If we switch it out for a human, people would say, well, it's always abuse. I mean, if we can look through history, we can see examples of where, or even just now. Let's not go back. Let's go forward, right? Let's go forward to talk about if right now there are many countries and many people in the world that would benefit tremendously from taking other humans and forcing them to do things for them, right? The world would be actually probably run really well if we had this system in place right now with manpower, free manpower, free labor, as long as they're fed and clothed and treated well, but they have no choice. The world would probably run in a pretty more efficiently, and a lot of people would be a lot happier, but a lot of people would be unhappy, right? But the point is that those people that would be forced, they wouldn't be benefiting from this. It would just be the rest of us, or the rest of them. Maybe I would be one of the people being forced. The rest of the people would be the ones benefiting. That's the point I'm getting at. That doesn't justify doing it. Now, when we look at humans, we say, well, no, we could never do that. Even if it benefits 99% of society to have 1% in that position, we can't do it. It's immoral. But when we look at the non-humans, we say, well, okay, if some people have a more convenient life, or some people have an easier access to nutrition, even though they could eat something else, then it's justified. What is the difference between a human and a non-human that makes doing this to them justified and doing it to humans never justified? Like, what is the trait that they have or don't have that we have or don't have, if that makes sense? What is the actual difference?
I think the difference now is gonna get a little. I'm gonna sound a little evil here, but I
Sure.
don't care about people. I think people are just the same as cattle. We're all being used to work in factories. We're all being used to fulfill some goal for the 1%. We think we have free will, but we have free will inside of a closed system. We can't go out and scavenge off of the earth without getting fines from government. And so all this
Yeah.
stuff is relative to humans and creating what humans have, or human ideas versus natural laws. So yeah, appeal to nature versus humans. I don't think we're above everything. I think we should appeal to nature. I think we're still a part of nature. I think we're trying to be above everything. I think we're trying to be civilized. Someone mentioned in the comments, we live in a civilized society. Who's to say that Native Americans didn't live in a civilized society because they killed each other?
We're not. This is bullshit. I agree with you. We're not living in a civilized society. We have
No, yeah, but I'm saying
we just have better weapons now that don't require people to go and kill each other in person. They just push buttons instead. I don't
right.
think this
So
is more
in that
civilized. It's still as brutal as. But what's the point? The point is, like, what is the trait though? Do you have that answer? Like, what makes it okay to do it to them but not to do it to? Or do you think that we can do it to humans too? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I do.
kind
I
of
think
lost the point.
the fact that we're overpopulated right now, and we've tried to stop all these diseases from cutting us out. We've tried to farm all these animals and all these plants so that we have mass quantities of food and we have supermarkets. All that shit is not okay. Humans are ruining the earth. I mean, it's good to care about animals, but humans are ruining the earth no matter
So
what we do.
let me just clarify then to make sure I'm understanding correctly, because this seems pretty intense if it's right what I think you've just said. If so you support the idea that if putting 1% or more, like let's put it up to 10%, right? Because it's 1% is really small. If taking 10% of humans and putting them in a position where they are forced to do what the rest of the people want them to do because it makes everybody else's lives easier, but it makes that 10% life where basically they're living in a modern version of slavery. It puts them in a position where they don't have a freedom, but they're comfortable, that they are being exploited, right? You're saying that if that could be put into place, you would support that because you don't draw a distinction between humans and non-humans, and we do that to non-humans. You'd be happy to see us actually do that to humans too. Am I
No,
understanding this
I'm
correctly?
saying that I wouldn't care if it happened to people because we do it to animals without remorse. And what I'm saying is, if we're going to make the argument for animals, which I do care about, and I don't care about people, that we need to
Okay.
actually work on making conditions better for animals. Just not killing them and eating them, that doesn't solve anything because it's still going to happen in nature. I'm still a part
It
of
solves
nature. I don't
everything.
care about that cycle.
It solves
But we need
everything.
to figure out a way to.
Okay, so I mean, we can go to nature as the next point. Like, some people are arguing that we should actually intervene in nature. Some people argue that say that we can actually get involved and we can reduce suffering in nature. I've not looked into this enough, so I don't want to get into it here. I'll be honest with you, I've not really made my mind up on that yet. I don't know enough about it, right? But there's some very smart people who are discussing this and saying we could intervene and we could actually do something about, a lot of the horrific suffering in nature. But forget that for a second. That's a whole separate topic. If you've said it multiple times now, you don't want to see suffering of animals. Forgetting nature, but talking about within human society, you don't want to see the suffering. But you say that not eating them and not using them is not an option, but it is an option. And you might say, okay, not for everyone. All right, maybe not for absolutely everyone, because there are definitely certain groups and certain communities across the world that are going to find it either impossible or nearly impossible. And that's a whole different conversation to have. Like, I've been to India and I've worked with activists who work in the slums advocating for people to eat plant-based, right? I'm not going to go there and talk to them about that. That's not my place. I don't know their lives. I don't know what the fuck's going on with them. But there's some people out there who do that, right? When I say, when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you because you are someone that can make this change, and everybody around you can make that change, and their friends and their families can make that change, and this kind of connection will go on and on and on and on, right? There are literally tens of millions of people that can make this change, and it can be very simple for them. And there are also a lot of people that, like the people living in the slums in India, that are not going to watch my videos anyway, and that I wouldn't want to watch my videos because I'm not the person they should be like listening to, right? But the reason that you're here talking about this is because you can change and you can do something about it, and you can influence the people around you, and you can get them to stop using and consuming animal products to stop all of this shit happening to animals. Like, you can literally do that. You have a lot of power at your hands right now, and a lot of influence around people around you. So if that's something you're passionate about, ending it, I mean, don't sell yourself short. You can stop doing it, and so can everybody around you. So why not go ahead and do that and start to have that influence on the people around you? And then, yeah, you can talk about nature as a separate topic. I can link you some videos to find out about some of the proposed solutions to wild animal suffering, because you're right, they do suffer, and that's not something we want to ignore. But it's not something, maybe, that, I don't know, what the argument of whether to get involved or not, that's a whole debate. But I can send you some links to go and check that out and see if you think it could be worth getting involved in that, and trying to reduce that suffering as well. But let's start at home. Let's start with me, right? What can I do first?
Well, to explain where I stand a little bit better, I don't like the suffering of animals. And to me, what I consider suffering is being cooped up in pens, being forcibly brought into the world to be cooped up in pens, the way we keep cows pregnant and so that we can drink their milk all the time is not okay. All that specifics of cattle and like using it like a tool, that's not okay with me. But killing an animal and then eating its meat, if it's lived a nice, long, healthy life and has had free range or has had freedom, hasn't been force pregnated, was brought into the world by two parents that chose to bring it in the world, and then we kill it and eat it, that doesn't upset me. That's normal. We don't have to do it, right? Obviously, because we can farm plants and stuff. That doesn't matter to me, though, because it's part of nature, and I'm still a part of nature. If we can stop the animal suffering and the tools and using the animals, that would be ideal. But by no means does that mean I want to stop eating the meat. I like the way the meat tastes. I like the way the meat makes me feel. I like the way vegetables taste. I like the way vegetables make me feel. If vegetables are living organisms too. They may not have central nervous systems. Humans can't interact with them the way we interact with animals, but they're living. Ecosystems of plants in nature communicate with each other. There's trees that don't touch in certain forests because the trees talk to each other. They're alive. They have feelings too. They don't want to be used and eaten for food. No, wait, but they actually do. They adapt so that their seeds get spread around and then they can reproduce. It's just the way the world works. It's a life cycle. I'm not going to stop eating meat to save people's feelings just because killing an animal baseline is wrong. No, what's wrong is the way we have them in these conditions and the way we're utilizing them. Killing them, hunting them, finding an animal on the ground, all this stuff for food is not wrong to me. And we need to find a middle ground to work with how we have society set up and to make sure that we're not making these animals suffer. I'm personally not, I don't care about killing an animal for food. That's where I stand.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've kind of already been through a lot of this, but to go back and just say one more time, the the idea that it's nature is it's not actually a logical thing to say that it's nature, so we do it. It's the way it is, so we do it. It's nature, so we do it. These are not logical positions to hold. That they it doesn't something happening in nature doesn't
It's not a
make it
logical position. It's something that I feel
inherently
in my heart. It's something that I feel in my
okay.
bones and my nervous system that I want to
Sure,
be a
but
part of nature
those
and that we're divulging too far from that.
yeah, yeah. That's fine. So be part of nature, but being part of nature doesn't necessarily mean that
Abusing animals.
requiring animals to slit animals' throats because because they it brings you pleasure. And again, you said one more thing. You said again. I feel like this has been like a bit of a theme here that I don't care if it hurts someone's feelings. I don't care if people think it's wrong. I don't care if you don't care about me thinking it's wrong. It's not me that I want you to listen to or even care about. I don't want you to care about my feelings or anyone's feelings in the comments.
The
Fuck
animals'
that.
feelings.
Fuck that. It's not even about their feelings. It's just about them in general. You don't have to care about them. You just have to acknowledge the fact that this isn't about me or you. It's about them. It's about them. And it's just the same as I said. It's not about I don't give a shit about killing them. I don't give a shit about I care about them suffering or not, but I don't care about them dying. The point is that we've been through it all over. They are being bred. They are being created by people who want to profit from their bodies and sell them to you by using them, breeding them, slitting their throats, well, shooting them in the head and slitting their throats. And even if they don't breed them, if they go out in the wild and you shoot them dead when it's not necessary, it
That's
doesn't
not.
matter if you care or not about it. The fact of the matter is that it is not necessary. It's not a guilt trip. It is not. I'm just saying it's not necessary. And the fact of the matter is that that animal has been shot in the face or shot in the head or shot in the heart or wherever they've been shot, probably maybe multiple times. Doesn't matter. They're being shot. They're being killed for pleasure. That's the objective truth of it. For pleasure. You dressed it up as, well, it's, I feel it's right. And that's okay. You can talk about that. But ultimately, you do it because it makes you feel good. You said that. Feels right. It feels good. I like it. So we're talking about violence for pleasure. You may as well, not you, but anyone who's doing this, they may as well be going out hunting for sport because it's the same thing. If someone hunts and kills an animal, eats the burger, or someone hunts them and hangs their head on the wall, it's both pleasure. There's not really a distinction to be made here. One does it for pleasure to show off. One does it for pleasure because it makes the taste buds feel good. It's killing animals, but abusing, whatever you want to call it, abusing, killing, exploiting. The semantics don't matter. It's doing something to someone else that doesn't want you to do it for pleasure.
I can honestly admit and say out loud, I do
Mm-hmm.
find pleasure in eating meat. And I'm saying that I'm relating it to me personally because this is probably where a lot of other people stand. Eating meat does bring me joy, it makes me happy, but that's because I can feel the way it makes me feel. It's not like I just like the taste. The steak tastes amazing, but the steak builds back my proteins and my muscles better than finding very, very specific plant proteins in specific quantities and eating all this amount of plants. I can eat those and then I can eat meat in unison and have a nice, well-rounded diet that benefits me. I don't need to only eat plants.
But then you'd also be, as we said, you'd be contributing to the things that you're against. You're against putting animals through unnecessary.
Right. And so
We can use the word suffering, or we sorry.
earlier I tried to make the point that when I move out and when I am self-sustained, because there's a pandemic, I'm only 19, I'm living at home, I'm not on my feet yet. I'm
Yep.
going to be able to source my vegetables locally from farmers markets, do fair trade farming in vegetables, find animals who weren't abused and who were murdered humanly, and then I can have a nice, well-rounded, balanced diet and feel morally and ethically sound about it. The killing of animals is no problem to me because animals die every day. We are animals, we die every day. I don't separate humans from animals that much, other than we can manipulate our environment and talk about it, but we're still in those cycles. So once I can find humane meat sources and do that, I will do that. And I want to advise people to do that and advocate for that. But the baseline of slitting an animal's throat or
Yeah.
putting a thing in their head is
Yeah.
only wrong if you're not going to use them for nutrients. Yeah, in my
But
opinion, putting them
it's
on the
wrong if
wall
it's
and eating them is there is a huge difference. You're
it's
trophying something on your wall that you killed versus
both
you're
are
eating something for
like
nutrients.
Both are 100% unnecessary and done for pleasure. That's all that matters. Both of them were killing an animal for pleasure for something that wasn't necessary. And the whole humane part we've been through, again, it's not possible to let's break humane down. Let's stop using humane as a word that's like a encompassing word, because it isn't. It's got a definition: with compassion or benevolence. So let's
Hmm.
keep saying that. So killing with compassion. I'm only going to buy animals that have been killed with compassion or benevolence. Let's break it down again. I'm only going to buy animals. I'm only going to pay someone to kill animals that don't want to die for a reason that is not necessary, basically for my own pleasure. But I'm only going to get them to do it with the ones who've done it with compassion and benevolence. How do you kill someone, an animal, or anyone who doesn't want to die for no good reason with compassion? It's not euthanasia. This is not like
The
a,
act
a
of
horse or a
killing
dog who's
isn't
injured or something.
compassionate. The act of killing itself isn't compassionate. There's no compassion in that. When you're sharing a
There
life with
is
an
if
animal
it's
and you
putting
raise
someone out
it,
of misery, though. If it's putting someone out of misery, it's of
well,
course
yeah,
it's
but in
compassionate.
this in this context we're talking about, right? In this
Yes,
context,
absolutely.
I'm agreeing
Yeah.
with you. There's no compassion. There's no feelings for it. But when you add in the factors that someone loved this animal their whole life, they raised it. Yeah, it's being raised to be eaten.
Not anymore,
Okay,
though. They just
right?
shot them in the head and slit their throat. I mean, it's
But
not.
but before
It's a
that,
love that's
it's
ended.
being raised with the objective to be eaten. That's baseline what's happening, right?
Sure, but it
That's
doesn't
what farming
justify
is
doing
for
it.
animals.
It doesn't justify doing it, though. It doesn't. It's not.
No,
It's not
it
a good
doesn't
enough reason to
justify
do it.
killing it. No, to you, it doesn't justify killing it. To me, if you give an animal a really good life and you feed it amazingly and you care for it, and you love it, and you talk to it, and then it's getting old, and then you kill it, and then you eat its nutrients and put it back into the life cycle, and you use its energy to live, and it has a shorter lifespan than you. Which cow lifespans, we can talk about how they slaughter the cows early, and that's not cool at all for tenderness instead of it's all bad. But if you raise that animal, give it life, give and spend time with it, care about it, and then put it back into the circle of life. When we're die, we're supposed to go into the ground. Plants are going to use us. Ideally, before they would use us as fertilizer. Our bodies would decompose and they grow. Animals would eat those animals. We eat animals. It's a cycle. Now we are out
Sure,
of
but
that.
yeah, but sure. If I had
But
the choice,
I
if I had
still
the
want to be
choice,
a part of that.
yeah, if I had the choice, you have the choice though. You have the choice. You've been born into freedom, and you now have the choice. Unless somebody takes your life and kills you, which I'm sure you'd rather didn't happen. But you have been born into a life of freedom where you have choices to make. Okay, okay. What if you said earlier on about how freedom. Freedom is not. We're in like a societal kind of cage or something. I'm talking freedom as in like you're not in a physical cage. You're not someone's pet. You're not someone's
You're not
product.
a
All right.
slave to your own impulses. You can make choices and conscious
Well, that's a
decisions.
whole yeah, that's a whole other thing. But I mean, I guess
Okay.
we all are in some aspect. But my point is that you've not been bred and raised with a purpose to benefit somebody else. Like your parents, maybe they had some reason to have you.
We are
You
born and
know,
raised with a purpose to benefit someone else because 1% of
yeah.
the world has 99% of everyone's wealth. So that's
All
exactly
right,
what
all
we're
right, all
doing.
right, all right. Yeah, that's what I'm
We are
trying to.
all cattle.
I understand I understand this in a sense, but we're talking about. I'm talking about a literal sense here. Like in a literal sense,
That is as
you can
literal
walk.
as it gets.
You can walk out that door and go wherever you want, and somebody's not going to force you back. Well, maybe now because of the quarantine, maybe, but someone's not going to force you back home, and or try and profit from you and try and sell you and try and
Put prisoners in a
take
giant
things from
field.
your
They're still in a
body.
cage. They still have objectives that they have to do. They have to stay within those walls. They can't just because they can
Sorry,
move
sorry.
around freely.
Say again.
But
Sorry. My point is, like,
yeah, go to your point.
yeah, go on, but you see the point I'm getting at here. That like these animals, they're born into this life of captivity.
Hmm.
They say they're born raised for purpose, or and that makes it okay. But they're literally born as products. They're like they're not treated. They're treated like and seen as products on a production line because that's what they are. You talk about this kind of beautiful way of, I don't know, they treat them really well and all this stuff. It doesn't matter to them and to
There's
the
such
rest to
things
you.
valuing something's life before you consume it, and then honoring it, and then putting it back into.
If you
Yeah, that's a
have
thing.
to, if you have to, absolutely. But if you don't have to, there's no honor in doing it. There's no honor. There's no beauty. There's no what's the word I'm looking for here? Respect here, because it's unnecessary. You did it because you like it. So how can it be respectful? How can it be compassionate? How can it be any of those things?
I don't. Necessity isn't what breeds morals or justification. It's an aspect of it.
It is a big,
Necessities
and
is just a single
it's a
aspect
pretty,
of it.
it's a pretty important aspect of it. It's the difference between something being right or wrong.
I want to see.
If I go out and shoot a human here, right? Let's talk about humans. If I go and shoot a human dead, and people are, why did you do that? I'm like, because I liked it. Versus if I shoot a human dead, they say, why did you do that? I say, because he was about to shoot me and my family. Well, one is a necessity. I had to do it. I had no choice. The other, well, I did have a choice, but I didn't want to die. I didn't want my family to die. The other is, no, I had a choice and I chose to do it because I wanted to kill him. This is necessity is a core component of what makes one of these right and one of them wrong. So when we're looking at non-human animals, it is so important as to whether it's necessary or not, as to say whether it can be done with trust, whether it can be done with respect, whether it can be done, whether it can be something beautiful, whether it can. I mean, I don't think it can ever be beautiful, but I understand the point you're talking about earlier with the tribes and the way they lived and how it was something to aspire to. Yes, if it's necessary, then I would be tempted to agree with you and say, yeah, it is a way of life that was probably a very, passionate and compassionate way of living because they had no choice. It was a necessity, and that would have been the best way to live when they had no choice. But now we're in a position where we have a choice. We can't repeat what they're doing and say that it's still good. It's still beautiful, because it isn't. Because it's for pleasure. It's not for necessity. It's for pleasure. It's for convenience. It's because I like how it tastes, and that it can't be a compassionate reason to do
So
it.
so we're at the top now of the food chain. We have a
Right.
playground where we do whatever we want. We don't eat food anymore. We destroy
Yep.
Earth. We have technology and all that stuff. So we don't have to eat meat. So we shouldn't eat meat, and everyone should be on a vegetable-based diet, a plant-based diet.
We're in a position where we understand nutrition a lot better. We have the capacity to do it. Anyone that has the capacity to do it has a moral obligation to do it. Because
Okay.
if not, as long as if not, then they are committing acts of violence for pleasure, and that's immoral. I think anybody would say objectively that is immoral. To commit acts of violence for pleasure is an immoral thing, no matter how which way you look at it. That's not subjective, right?
Okay. In a philosophical standpoint, yeah, committing violence for pleasure is not morally justified. And right now, we aren't in the food chain, so we do not have any necessity for survival. We basically are at the point where we know we can't survive. Everyone should be eating plant-based diets so that it's not morally upsetting, and the animals are okay. I'm very curious what that world looks like. I'm very curious
Me
if
too,
that's ever
man.
going to happen. We
I
wouldn't
hope we
have
see
gotten
it
to
at
that
some
point if that
point.
was the case. We just wouldn't be in the position to where we can be vegan if we didn't eat meat. So I'm very interested on how humans expect to completely remove themselves from the cycle of nature and then continue being good. Are we just going to ruin the
Hey, look.
environments and grow plants for the rest of our lives just so that we can have
well,
this civilization? That's
Well,
pointless to
well,
me.
well, well. Look, I mean, we're at a point now where we're growing an extremely large amount of plants. 50% of the world's crops are grown to feed non-human animals to kill and feed humans, right? So we're already growing enough crops to feed every human on the planet.
But we're using it to feed the
Six,
animals instead so that we can eat the
yes,
animals because we prefer,
yes,
yeah.
yes, exactly. And there's people starving, literally dying of starvation, whilst animals are eating food that they could be eating, but they can't get the food because richer people want to eat animal products, right? So we're already growing enough food to feed everybody. And let me just be clear on something. Not
Yeah.
all of that food that's grown to feed animals is fit for human consumption. Like, I accept that, but a fucking lot of it is. A lot of it is, and it wouldn't take much to switch the crops they're growing to different crops so that they would all be fit for human consumption. So, we're in a position already where we're growing a lot of plants. It's not like we'd have to grow more. We just have to change what we're growing in some cases. The land is already there, and stop breeding animals and start feeding the people with plant food. So yeah, it's going to be a big change. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to happen overnight, absolutely, but it's going to take a lot of us to talk about it. We need to talk about it. We need to keep on talking to other people. We need to keep on raising awareness, and people like yourself need to keep having these conversations. But it begins with us. I mean, we can't. I can see it seems like a big task, right? It seems like, oh my god, this will never happen. But if everybody thought that, nothing would ever have changed ever. I mean, we could look through history and see multiple examples of where the world was a lot worse off than it is now for certain groups in society. And now it's a lot better off for those groups in society. But that didn't happen by people sitting around and thinking, oh, I wish things would change. It happened by people getting out, fighting, speaking, you know, getting out there and doing something about it. And that's the position we're in now. If we want this to change, which we do, then we have to get out and do something about it. We have to start with ourselves and then spread this to others and form a movement, which is what this is. It's vegan animal rights movement, the vegan movement. This is what it's all about.
I'm down for the cause. I'm down for progressive movements and human progression and the progression of the world. But aside from how inhumane it is to farm animals, in terms of like mass vegetable farming, using all our water resources, causing all this global warming, transporting food with cars and stuff, having such an overly large population, this doesn't,
Yep.
not veganism per se, but the way we're trying to go about things does not seem like the right step forward. And the way we're educating people about meat consumption and the conclusion we just came to, it doesn't seem like that's happening. It seems like me and you can have that conversation, but when I go in the comments and I read everything, people are just saying animal abuser, da 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 da. It's just like arguing. It's just bickering. It's not any sort of real conversation or progress, and that's frustrating me because we're just arguing with each other. We're not making any
Totally.
change.
Yeah, we talk past people talk past each other. I get that. This is what happens with comment sections though. Whatever the topic is, comment sections are just the most toxic places to be because there's no tone of voice. You can't see someone's eyes. You can't see if they're smiling or if they're frowning, or you can't feel who they are as a person. It's not even a person, man, when you're talking in a comment section. It's text.
A screen.
It's a screen and a picture of someone and text, and you're just like, you know, you don't know that they're not human. This is where cancel culture starts. Is that they don't see people as humans. They see them as just images on a screen. So they're like, well, I'm going to ruin their fucking life because I don't care about them, you know. And it's really sad that we're seeing a lot of this. And you're totally right. It happens within animal rights too. It happens. Vegans do it to other vegans. It's not just, you know, doing it to people who are non-vegan, and you know, non-vegans do it to non-vegans, and it's a shame. You're right. It is a shame, but there is some hope. There are a lot of farmers out there, dairy farmers, who are now switching their farms to farm oats. They're growing oats. They're all
oats through make the dairy through oats and grains.
Exactly right. Yeah, and there are other
alternative.
farmers switching to mushroom farming. There are other farmers switching their entire operations to do just plant-based plant proteins, basically, like switching to grow other things. So, and these are coming from conversations where the, you know, organizations are out there trying to help them, because a lot of farmers don't want to do this. A lot of them do, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them don't. They've listened to some animal rights activists, they're listening to vegans, they're seeing that actually, wait a minute, I don't feel good about doing this anymore. Like, is there a way out? So, you know, these conversations are happening for sure, but you're right. There needs to be more of them, and I hope I can be part of that. Have more conversations like this and more people on the channel. Not everyone's going to be as reasonable as you, though. You got to understand it. I understand it's coming from you. You're seeing it all
Kind of
from
reasonable.
you're seeing it from your perspective, right? That you feel like you're being attacked by some vegans that calling you an animal abuser. But understand, mate, it's all my side as well. Like, pretty much 99% of the responses I get from people who are not vegan is abuse. I've had death threats. I've had people like telling me like if they ever see me in the city, they're gonna beat the shit out of me. You know, all just for talking about veganism and animal rights. Man.
Stuff.
Yeah, so you know, it's both sides. I understand that it's both sides are acting in a bad way, but from our side, a lot of people, a lot of vegans get very emotional, including myself, because of, as I said, what we've seen, what we are seeing daily. And you know what, I believe if you watched and saw some of this as well, you would understand a lot more as to why a lot of vegans get very passionate. Maybe you'd be more empathetic when they do get angry, and try not to get angry back, because look, when you're watching and seeing behind the scenes of these places on a regular basis, even the small farms, which are, you know, you have this opinion that they're somehow better.
There's
There's
some sort
undercover
of
footage
darkness
from
or mental thing that people are doing to cause some sort of abuse or suffering of animals.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, like before I actually got something I wanted to show you here, and you can check this out, and you can see this just as an example. I don't know if you've ever heard of or seen this before, but this is the kind of stuff that vegans, animal rights activists are actually trying to stop. All right. So you can imagine, if we're seeing stuff like this and we're trying to end it, you can imagine why sometimes some vegans might lose their temper. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but this is how they humanely stun and kill pigs.
Yeah, I haven't seen Dominion in particular, but I've seen a lot of slaughterhouse videos and a lot of stuff. The school I went to was an environmental activism school, so
Sure. Well, let me
Yeah.
show you this. This is actually from Dominion. This is something a lot of people don't know exists. It's a gas chamber. So they put pigs in gas chambers. This is happening all over the USA, all over Australia, all over the UK, basically all across the West. They put them in these. One second, let me just get this sorted out. They put them in these gas chambers, right? And this is not
Hmm.
the aim of this isn't to, as you were saying, guilt trip you. The aim is to make you
Just
kind
see
of
how
more
horrible
aware
it is. Yeah.
of what's going on. Yeah, let me just pull this up now. All right. So this is how it is when these pigs go into a gas chamber. So they put them down and start pumping the CO2 gas in, and this is to stun them and kill them.
That's an animal suffocating right there. You can tell.
So what you're seeing there, right, is just a snippet of the kind of shit that's going on in these places. Now,
Yeah, I'd like to
what? Go on,
stop.
sorry.
I, that makes me violent towards the people who are causing the violence towards the pigs.
I
It's very
mean, yeah,
frustrating to watch.
what that is the CO2, right? And it goes into their lungs, it burns all their throat, it burns their lungs, it eventually knocks them out, and most of the time it kills them. And these are gas chambers, you know. And you got to ask the question: what the hell has happened to the point where, you know, did we not learn from history about gas chambers? And a lot of people they can't believe that this is happening. You know, they get angry at vegans because some vegans we say that it's an animal holocaust, and they say, how can you say it's a holocaust? How can you say that? Like, they're literally
It's a
using gas
holocaust.
chambers. It's a holocaust. Like, how can we say it's not? You know. So this is what they're doing, and as I said, this is all across the West. This is the most humane method according to the law, according to, you know, farmers. Farmers send the pigs to these places, and, you know, these organic, free range, you know, high welfare farms, humane farms, whatever you want to call them. Well, they send them to these places, and this is what happens. And if they don't do that, they bolt them in the head and slit their throat. These are the only ways that this happens. There's no other way to do it. So this is why you see some vegans get pissed off and get angry, just the same way, like, you know, some people of other movements fighting for other causes get pissed off, get angry. We you know, if we understand what they've seen and what they're going through, and it's easier to kind of understand why they're angry, is the point I'm getting at here.
Well, I can relate it to like the Black Lives Matter movement as best as I can. Um, People just want to say all cops are bad, all white people are racist, all this stuff is just not true, right? And it's anecdotal to history and what we've seen over and over again, but it doesn't address any of the real issues. It's kind of just causing outrage and telling everyone to make a change. Da, 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 you're doing this and that. And this is where I sort of differentiate, show someone this video, post that video, bring that up to them, and then say, doesn't this look like animal abuse? Instead of going out on a common space where you say there's not a lot of face and stuff, or people can't interact really. You're just
Yeah.
throwing out animal abuse, or you're doing this, you're doing that, instead of showing what's actually happening, talking about
Yeah.
positive ways to change it and making positive change. We're just pointing the finger or yelling at people or saying what you're doing is wrong, and we're not saying why. We're not trying to fix that. And that's just sort of my original comment was sort of like the narrative I wanted to start is like, okay, not all meat eating is bad. We can start the conversation by saying, oh, are you sourcing your meat humanely? Or like just asking them, do you know where your meat comes from? Instead of just like trying to point fingers or make it satirical or fun all the time. I mean, it brings up new conversations and arguments, but in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
everything's sort of like cancel culture and bickering and like causing some big
Sure.
reaction. I think it
But do you
distracts
know?
us from making positive change.
Do you now concede at least that we've already been through like this kind of idea of humanely sourced meat and the idea that it could be humane? I mean, I think we've got to the bottom of this, that it can't by
Well,
definition
not humane,
be
but
humane.
more
You know,
ethical. But it can't be humane. Yeah, I get
well,
you.
can it be ethical? Can it be ethical when it's unnecessary and for pleasure? Can it be an ethical thing that we're doing when it's just to make us happy? It's violence to make us happy. I would
Well,
argue that it can't be.
is ethic is ethical the word, or is it good, ethically good or ethically bad? Because ethical, I think, is just
Sure.
encompassing your ethics
Yeah,
in
sure.
what
I
someone's
guess
doing.
ethically good. I'm talking about good. Can it ever be something that can be considered ethically good when it's done for pleasure? It's violence for pleasure and not necessity.
One situation is more ethically sound and more pleasurable to someone who is partaking in the negative of killing something for food. However, since you brought up the point, and since it is a very valid point that it is not possible, I mean, it is not necessary now. Yeah, I can agree and concede that it's not generally good ethically to do that if you don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've pretty much got to the point where we found where we agree and disagree. I mean, what I'd be curious to now know, speaking about you in particular, not necessarily in general terms, when I know you've made fun of that vegan boot camp, I don't know why I think maybe you see it as some kind of like, I don't know why you didn't seem to like the sound of it, but is that something you're gonna take a look at after, because it does have all the information, it has all the nutrition, it has professional advice, it has the videos, it has all the answers, everything we've just discussed here, but actually with sources and information and nutrition and all of that stuff. Do you think that's something you could take a look at?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely plan on checking out vegan boot camp, but in terms of like the aspect of it being a boot camp and like you need to reform yourself, get on the ASAP, that sort of thing is like that's a forcing thing. That's like pushing people. That's not educating people or giving them the knowledge. You gotta like
I get, all
tell
right.
them and let them know that there's information there, that there's other
So that's
things there,
the, all right.
instead of just
So that,
throwing like vegan boot camp at someone's face.
I get it. So
Like,
that's
oh,
the
you need to
issue
be
is that
vegan. You're an animal abuser. Like that's
I
not
get it.
cool. You
I get
don't
it.
talk to people like that. That's not how you
You know,
change
now
minds.
I never thought about it like that. That the vegan boot camp could be interpreted as like a, like some kind of like I don't know, communist recalibrating thing. Because it's kind of like it does feel a little bit like that now you mention it like that. I see your point. That's a really good point. But it's not. It's nothing like that. It's when you sign up to it, you just have lots of like things you can check out. It's super chill. It's not like you go through some kind of recalibration or something. It's just you're like, okay, so for you, you're interested in how to get the right nutrition so you can fight, and you're training a lot. So you just go straight to the nutrition section, and it gives you everything you need. You want to learn about humane farming or organic farming and all these. They use these marketing buzzwords to trick you, right? It shows you in there why it's all bullshit. It
No,
shows
I'd
you how
rather
it's
like
still
to know. I'd
lying
like to
and
go to my farm and see what's happening, or like know the
right.
processes versus like just listen to labels or words, because that's not
Well,
that's
yeah,
bullshit.
I mean, I'd honestly really recommend you go to these places and don't tell them you're going. This is another thing. When they organize farm visits, they're really clever. They hide everything, man. Like I've investigated farms, small farms, when they weren't expecting me. I've been to them at night. I've been to them during the day, and when they don't expect you, you see everything. You see all the way these animals are. Sometimes you might not think it's too bad, or you might think, okay, this doesn't seem as bad, but then if you really dig deep into it and just
Challenge
what I'm trying to
yourself
say,
a little bit.
challenge yourself, right? What I'm saying is it's easy to go when you've seen the horrors of factory farming. When you go to a smaller farm, you might think it's like, oh, this is all right, but really consider what position these animals are in. That's the point I'm getting at here.
So
I don't know if you've
I'm
broken
not
up again
spending.
there.
Yeah.
I think you're back now. Maybe your audio is at least. I'll wait for you to come back. Sorry, 1 second. Whilst he's, oh shit, it's completely cut out. Damn, that was in the middle of a point that needed to be made. But we'll see if he can jump back in, and we'll continue. And after the conversation, I'll finish off and talk to you guys separately, just to kind of sum up or whatever. But we'll see if he can come back or not. I don't know what happened. Seemed to have lost his Wi-Fi. So yeah, I've seen a lot of you guys. It's funny, the comments here have been a little bit mixed. Some of you are like, "Oh, David, you're not doing a good enough job." Some of you are like, "Oh, David, this is a good conversation." I don't even know who to believe.
Sorry, we were
Yo,
doing very well there, and then it just cut out towards the end.
no worries. Just to finish my point here, anyway, just like about the farms. So I've been in some farms, as I was saying, some farms where, at first glance, I'll be honest with you, I've thought, I mean, this is not as bad as I thought it would be, kind of thing. But then just don't fall into the trap of thinking that makes it good. At the end of the day, every single farm that we go to, they're breeding animals for profit. That's it, right? These animals might seem okay, or they might even seem happy in some of these places. Like some of these places have big fields where they hang out and stuff. But the reality of it is actually when you get to the slaughterhouse, and that's when these farms that seem like they're really nice, think about where they go next, and if you can, try and find out where they go next and go in there and watch. And again, once you've seen that, once you see how it goes, you'll realize that there's no amount of pleasure that can justify this. Necessity, you could argue for necessity if it was necessary, but pleasure, there's no way we can say this is worth it for pleasure. this is where people, they see them in the farms and they think, oh, this isn't too bad, I can handle that. But then they see them in the slaughterhouse and they're like, actually, no fucking way, I'm not going to pay for that for my taste pleasure. Or, you know, even when it comes to eggs and milk, when you go to these places and you see how they impregnate them with artificial insemination. Have you ever seen that before, by the way? How these farmers
Yeah.
do that?
Hmm.
So, you know, they do that to them. With the egg laying hens, they keep them in free range, like the best of the best free range. There's these massive barns with like thousands
Yeah.
of them inside. It's not free. And even if it was
Packed
free
on
range,
top of each other, shitty
even if it was free
condition.
range, man, they're laying 50 eggs or more in a year. They're supposed to lay
Not
14.
supposed to do that, yeah.
You know what I mean, man? They're complete
The
fucking
hormones that
messes,
they're
all of
pumping
them.
in, just the production rates that they're trying to fulfill, all of it's just horrible, terrible. It's not sustainable in any capacity.
Exactly. And the point is that, I guess the closing point here is that we don't have to be any part of any of it. And, you know, we don't have to. It's all for pleasure. It's none of it's for necessity. It's all convenience. It's all pleasure. And you have the vegan boot camp. You can sign up to that, or you don't. I mean, you just literally log in and you have all the chapters. You learn everything you need to learn, and you don't have to be part of it. And the people around you also don't have to be part of it. And this is how we create change. It's the only way to create change. We don't do it by just sitting around talking about, oh, this would be nice. We do it by actually doing what we believe in. We change it. And that's the whole point, man. That's what we're all about. And that's what you're all about now, I hope, as well. I hope we'll stay in contact and maybe do a follow up to this and see what's going on, if you're up for that in the future at some point.
Okay, definitely. I'm still trying to sort things out with the pandemic and what is and isn't available in terms of like just
Yeah.
what you can and can't have right now. But I
Well,
definitely
yeah.
have some stuff some goals that I want to work towards in my own personal life and helping animals and not having cruelty be a thing in my life.
Well, this is a pretty big step. And if you've got, I've got a feeling that you've got hang-ups with the title or you know, calling yourself a vegan. I guess, like, you know, that's something some people like, they feel like vegans are pushy and stuff like that. At the end of the day, man, I'll just tell you this one more thing. If you don't want to call yourself a vegan, I couldn't give less of a shit. If people want to tell everyone like, I fucking hate vegans, vegans are all this, vegans are all that, it doesn't make a difference to me. I'm not this is not a religion, as I said. It's not something, it's not like a team that I'm trying to employ people into
Well,
my
when you
team or
put a
some shit.
title that it says
It's
anti-vegan comes in and talks about veganism, you're directly causing divide and making
see
teams
see
where there's none.
see there's the reason for that, right, is I actually thought about this. I thought, like, wait, the dude's not necessarily an anti-vegan, but he made some anti-vegan points, but he's not an anti-vegan. But dude, what other kind of title could I have possibly put? I was thinking, like, how do I describe who this guy is? Random guy on
Yeah,
Instagram
I
debates me on
understand that.
veganism. You know, I had to put a title
Well,
together that made sense, you
how do
know.
we hold discussion and stay true to the is we're not grouping people, we're not categorizing people, we're not doing that. When we're on our main biggest
Yeah,
platforms, we're polarizing people into two different categories.
it's a good point.
It's
It's a
it's
good
kind
point,
of
man.
hard to do.
No, you're right. I hold my hands
But
up, man.
that's not my quarrel. Yeah,
I'll
I
hold
just
my
don't
hands
like
up
the
on that.
idea of putting
I'm
people down instead of educating
right.
them.
I'll hold my hands up on that and say I'm definitely guilty of that for sure. But the good thing is that when we actually spoke, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't what the title may have suggested. You know, the thumbnail and the title suggested that we were going to fight. I had never had an intention to fight. But unfortunately, this is, if you don't, I'm going to tell you some truth now, and this is for also for the people watching as well. If you don't
Drop
put
that
something
bomb.
out like that, right? If you don't put something out like that, people won't fucking watch it. And then no one learns. No one comes to see an important conversation. Unfortunately, you've the clickbait thing. People have this big thing against clickbait, but at the end of the day, this is the world we're in now. Like, the only way to get people to actually watch your shit and listen is clickbait. You can't put an honest thing up, like, you know, if I put an honest thing up, like, a conversation with somebody who had a few anti-vegan arguments but seems like a nice guy, no
No
one
one
would
wants
come
to
to
watch
watch
that.
the fucking video, man. Like, nobody would be here right now. It is what it is. It is what it
But
is.
what
We're in
if
this
you had
society
used
now.
what if you just used plainly debate surrounding veganism?
No one would come, man. I'm telling you, been 100 people watching this the entire time, man. Do you really think 100 people would come and watch if it was debate on veganism? It's just,
No.
they wouldn't come, man. They wouldn't come. So as much as I
Humans need
feel
to do
you,
some reform into society, some large
we
scale.
do. We absolutely do. We absolutely do. But back to my point about labeling yourself, by the way, I was just wanted to say I don't give a fuck if anyone calls themselves a vegan or not. I could not give less of a shit. Call themselves a vegan or a plant-based or a whatever. If somebody is against doing this to animals and they don't do this to animals, they stop doing it, they stop consuming and using all the products that are doing this to animals, then awesome. Call yourself whatever you want. You know, I could not give less of a shit. Don't associate with vegans if you don't want to. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not about a title or a label. It's just about them. We're trying to change the world for them, and whatever that, whatever way that is. You know, if everyone stops abusing animals, everyone stops exploiting animals and using them for pleasure, and they all want to call themselves normals or I don't know, normies, or just whatever they don't want to call themselves, anything, I couldn't give less of a shit. I really couldn't. So I just want to make that really clear. It's not about labels. It's not about in groups and out groups. It's about doing right by them. That's all.
Well, I don't want to jump into anything too deep, but I also want to put this out there for people to think about. Veganism, plant-based diets, helping animals, animal cruelty is great, and we need to reduce animal suffering. But if we're gonna do that in the food we eat, we gotta do that in every single aspect of our lives. Not like
Sure.
you have to in order to make it justifiable or to have any ground basis to stand on, but really challenge yourself. You know,
Yeah.
what are we using the internet constantly for? How are houses built? How are these synthetic chemicals made? What are they doing to the environment? It's not just the food industry. It's the headphones, the AirPods that we have in our ears to do this, the phones that we're discussing on. We really need to look at how we're living and how it's affecting animals if that's the goal in the world we're trying to make.
Definitely. Definitely. I think that's a really important point, and I think that's something a lot of vegans would do well to take into consideration. It's not, yep, going vegan is a great thing, but it's not the only thing we can do. Going vegan is the absolute base minimum we can do. It's the first time. If someone says like, yeah, I give a shit about animals, and I don't want to be part of the, you know, any animal abuse or exploitation, and I want to make the world a better place for animals. Going vegan is step zero. It's not even a step. It's like default vegan, and then after that you can do so much more. You can do so many more things. Like you said, you consider everything you buy, every single thing, the impact of it. What impact would it have on the environment? What impact would it have on the animals? You know, you research this stuff. It's not just like, I'm vegan, so now I can do whatever I want as long as it's vegan. Now that's bullshit. But a lot of people act like that. I agree with you. I've been there as well. I'm not like that anymore. I wouldn't say, but yeah, going vegan to begin with, and then looking for more ways to be more ethical and more conscious after that. Absolutely, I agree with you. That's a great message, and I'm glad you brought it up. And I hope a lot of people watching would take that home as well. I think so we could do with a bit more of that within veganism for sure, within the animal rights and vegan movement. Cool, man. So we're like 2 hours
Yeah.
in. So do you have any closing statements you want to make? I'm going to hang about for a little bit longer just to do like I don't know, answer a few questions from people. But is there anything you want to say before we close up?
Mm, no, I think we covered a lot. I mean, I definitely still am on my goal of trying to eliminate as much animal suffering from my diet as possible. And while I can't, right now, I'm just not in a position where I can just stop eating meat and only eat plant-based and be healthy and not be malnourished. Uh, I'm definitely working towards that goal. And I'm definitely trying to make that happen.
Damn, we got most of the audio there, but I think he's gone. I think he's about to completely cut out. Oh, what do you think? Let's see what happens. Yeah. Is it I've not frozen, have I? No, it's just Kaylin, right? Yeah, he's gone. All right. Well, I hope he'll come back and finish that point, because I think that was an interesting point. But let's see if we can get him back in. Nice guy, right? In the end. Well, I mean, most of the conversation, he was a pretty reasonable, nice guy. It's like 99% of the conversation was pretty solid, good discussion. Let's see if he jumps back in just to finish his closing point. We got most of the audio, I think. Well, I got all the audio from it. I don't know if you guys got that, but he was just going through about how he yeah would. Oh, he's back now. We can finish the point. Yeah. Yeah, man, we got most of the audio from the last
Yeah.
point, but we didn't get your video. So I don't know if you want to just kind of, you were just getting up to the point where you were saying like right now, you're saying it's not possible right now, but it's something new, and then it kind of cut
Oh,
from there.
yeah, sorry. So it's my personal goal to become in a place where there's as little suffering, there's as little environmental footprint as possible in my life. I'm self-sustained mostly. I'm farming my own vegetables and fruits, and any meat that I get, if any, would be scavenged, natural. Just I would know where it comes from ideally, but I'm working on being better in my day-to-day life as much as I can right now, and until I can get to the place where I can eat a plant-based diet solely, I'm stuck where I am right now. But I'm
Yeah,
trying as best as I can.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
anyone who feels like they're stuck, you should still be trying to the best of your ability.
I believe, well, I believe in you, man, and I think you can. I think it's. I don't think it's going to take much for you to do this. I hope you do check out the vegan boot camp because it's going to make your life a lot easier. You might think it's very difficult, like you got. I think you've got this perspective that it's going to be really hard to do this, but in reality, it's not. It's not, and I think you'll realize how easy it is once you check that out, and go through that, you know, learn about what you can buy nearby, and then have some people to help you out with that. It's all free as well. It's really good. That's why I keep suggesting it, is because it's solid, man. It's solid information, and I think you'll find it really easy to do, to be honest. But I know you will, because it is going to be pretty straightforward with that, you know, the right information. So we can catch up. We'll keep in touch, man. I mean, we're connected on Instagram, so we'll keep in
Hmm.
touch, and we'll arrange something for some time from now. Who knows? You know, we'll keep in touch, and we'll maybe do another one of these. Thanks for coming on. I
Of
think
course, thank
everyone's
you for
appreciated.
having me.
I see a lot of comments of people really happy with, you know, saying thank you to you as well. So that's cool. So people are
Oh,
supportive, and
thank you guys. Yeah, I'm never trying to come on and argue and bash people. I'm just trying to learn and have discussion. Be a better person.
awesome, man. Cool. All right. Thanks so much, man. We'll keep in touch. I'll
Of
see
course,
you. See you next time. Hopefully, maybe a few weeks, a few months, we'll do this again.
of course. Have a nice one, David.
See you, man. All right, there we go. Just quickly, you guys, some of you guys have sent super chats, and I'm really sorry, but they came up at like the wrong times, and I couldn't get to them. So I'm really really sorry. They disappeared from my thing. But thank you, Oliver, for your super chat, your super sticker. Really appreciated that. I believe Trash Carcass also gave one. Thank you so much. You said to go to slaughterhouses, don't go to farms, and I kept that point in mind, and I did mention that point. Thank you for that. That was thanks to you. I believe Emily also did a super chat, so thank you so much. And again, apologies for not popping them up on the screen when you did them. So look, this was very interesting for me. It's my first time doing something like this on my channel. First time doing a kind of discussion, a kind of outreach, a debate, whatever you want to call it, online like this. So I think it was pretty positive. I'd say it was overall a positive, productive conversation. I think it was very good. As And Celine saying it's something about documentaries, watch documentaries like Dominion and Earthlings. Yes, they are also on Vegan Bootcamp. These documentaries are on Vegan Bootcamp. They are recommended, which is why I'm trying to send people to Vegan Bootcamp, because that's where you get all those resources right there. So it's all good. And if you really want, you've got me for like 10 minutes. Let's do a little Q&A if you want. Let me know, ask some questions. I'm going to go through the comments, see if there's anything I've missed. And you guys can, oh my goodness, my light went out. Wow. That was full at the beginning of this. Let me just switch out the light. It was a full bar. I don't understand how it died. Hey, get on. There you go. It's the benefit of having multiple batteries, you see? Always prepared for this shit because it goes wrong. But hey, at least this time, the live actually kept going. Look at this new internet. I fixed it. I figured out the problem. That means that we're going to have this 10-hour live stream, this 10-hour vegan teacher live stream. It's going to happen soon, thanks to the new internet that's hopefully not going to fucking fail anymore. So, Sarah Louise, thank you so much for that super chat. That I really appreciate the congrats, the well done, and the feedback. And thank you so much for your contribution. That's a healthy contribution. And I really appreciate it. There's always a huge risk of my streams and my videos getting demonetized because of the things that I talk about and the things that I show. So this is really appreciated, so I can keep doing this and I can sustain myself and keep making this content, getting it out there. Thank you so much, Sarah Louise. And we have another one as well, Donald. You made that guy thinking. Good chat, David. Yeah, I hope so, dude. I hope Kailyn thinks about our discussion. He seemed to be thinking about it. There was obviously resistance because I think he felt quite attacked by vegans. I've seen actually on my Instagram that he's been having a lot of arguments with vegans, and so I don't know if he came into this thinking that I was going to attack him too, and I had no intention of attacking the guy. I don't. I'm not going to bring anybody on here to attack them. It's not going. It's never going to happen. So I think in the end it was really good too. I enjoyed the conversation. I was pretty nervous as well, though. I know he was nervous. I was pretty nervous too. I don't know if you could tell. It's a nerve wracking situation, but there we go. It was useful. Thank you so much, Donald, for the super chat. What else? Did I miss anything? Yes, Louis. Veganism is a moral baseline. I absolutely agree with you, and I went into that with Kaylin as well. I absolutely agree with you on that. Yeah, Annie, thanks for doing this, Kaylin. Awesome, this convo was good. Hope you'll reconsider these things and make a change. I hope he reads these comments. These are really nice, supportive comments, and although we had some disagreements, we had some areas where it was like, oof, that was tough, but ultimately, I think he deserves some positivity from you guys. I think he came on here. Do you know how many people I invite to come on here who just wimp out? It happens all the time, and especially now I'm really upping it. I want to have more of these things because I can't go out and do outreach anymore, not really. So I want to have more of these. I want to get people on here to discuss. People don't want to do it. They're just happy to sit behind their little keyboard chatting shit. They really, really don't want to come on here and actually defend their positions live, and it's really sad. It's really sad, and it just shows the strength of their opinions, the strength of their points, that they won't come and defend them live. But yeah, it happens a lot. So anyway, back to the point. I really, really respect him for coming on and doing that, especially to an audience that is clearly not going to be on his side. It takes a lot of, it takes a big person to come on here and do that. And I appreciate it for sure. Oh, yes, all for that vegan teacher live stream. Well, look, we're 2 hours in, and the live stream's gone really well. Look at this connection. I'm so pumped about it. So I'm pumped now. We're gonna do that live stream. We're gonna do that vegan teacher live stream. 10 hours. We're gonna do it, guys. We're gonna raise money, and you know what? We actually have already raised a bit of money. Someone gave a €500 donation to the two sanctuaries through a GoFundMe that I made. So that's awesome, isn't it? An amazing thing, and we're gonna raise even more money through that 10-hour live stream. And Sarah Louise, happy to support. I really love that you said things like, sorry if using this word is triggering to anyone, because that's a conversation that's come up a lot lately, and I think it's the way to be. Well, yeah, I mean, when we were talking about rape constantly, it was like, oh, I felt like even I was like, oh my God, this is a bit too much of that. But we have to talk about it. We can't just keep avoiding using certain words because they're inconvenient. Like, it's a word that, yes, it's triggering for people, but we have to talk about it. It's relevant. We can't just keep skirting past it. Look, this Sunday, we have a very special live stream. We have a very special guest who's going to join for the live stream, which you're going to see soon because I'm going to post a thumbnail. And the very special guest is going to be Annie, the moderator, who's also my partner, and we're going to do a live stream together on Sunday, which is going to be it's a love stream because I don't know if you've realized, but Sunday is Valentine's Day. So we're going to come on and we're going to talk about vegan dating. We're going to talk about vegan and non-vegan dating. If you should date non-vegans, why to do it, why not to do it. We're going to talk about how to meet other vegans if you want to meet other vegans to get into a relationship or friendship or whatever you want. And we're going to do a Q&A. It's going to be like pretty loose, pretty open. You can ask us some questions, like personal questions if you want, stuff like that. It's Valentine's Day, so it's going to be a little bit of a change. It's going to be more about positivity, love, vegan love, animal rights, love in animal rights, the community, the movement. I don't know. It's just going to be love, all right? We're not going to try and do any it's not going to be anything negative or any debates or anything like that. It's Valentine's Day, so we're going to do a special one-off, all right? So we're going to do that. So come on Sunday, the Sunday live stream. Usual time. We'll see you all there for that. Iron Gamer, I hope that you're joking right now. I hope this is a joke. I will literally kill someone if there is lag on this stream. If you're doing this as a joke, it's not funny. It's not funny. It's not funny if that's a joke. But yeah. Highly recommend setting up Streamlabs. You get a much larger cut from the donations. Yeah, I've tried to set up Streamlabs and OBS Streamlabs, but that's what I tried last Sunday, and that's what failed miserably. I tried 3 times and it didn't work. So there's no lag, dude. That's not funny, right? Look, you're trolling me, so I'm gonna get out of here, right? I'm offended. But listen, call. Join me on Sunday. Join me and Annie and I on Sunday for the vegan love stream. It's gonna be really nice. All right, it's gonna be really nice. We're gonna have a lot of positivity. If you're alone on Valentine's Day, this is the place to be. If you are not alone on Valentine's Day, it's still the place to be. You should watch this with your partner and have some vegan love. All right. So I'll see you all on Sunday. Well, I'll see you all tomorrow for the Face the Facts Friday, which is, we've got some pretty good news actually for tomorrow as well, some interesting stuff. So join me for that, but also join for Sunday. Just guys, hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and watch every video. Come to every stream, watch every video, share them, all that good stuff. And that's how we'll get it out there. That's how you're going to help me. That's how we're going to get conversations like this getting out to more people. It's going to be real nice. It's going to be real nice, guys. Thank you so much for checking this out. I'll see you all tomorrow. I'll see you all again on Sunday, and I'll see you all throughout next week and forever. Just onwards and upwards, forever and ever and ever.